Let's see, Rumble, X. Let's see if we're up. YouTube, Instagram. Let's see. TikTok. Let's see. YouTube. Looks like we are straight on YouTube. Rumble. Looks like we are working on Rumble. Facebook, I think, is working. We've had a couple of days of jankiness on Facebook. We are checking in with LinkedIn, seeing if it gets started. LinkedIn was acting funny yesterday, so we didn't go live on LinkedIn yesterday. Facebook was acting funny for the last 2 days, so we didn't do that. Looks like LinkedIn is working. Instagram is working as usual. TikTok looks like it's working as usual. Good morning, TikTok. Good morning, Nikki, for checking in. You already got the #1 badge. I see you changed your profile picture too, Nikki. Congratulations. And let's see. LinkedIn, we are waiting. I got to mute LinkedIn because when you go live on LinkedIn, it plays back the sound out loud. So I got to make sure LinkedIn is muted. Good morning, Christine. As y'all are checking in, tell me where you're checking in from. Tell me your location when y'all are checking in. Good morning, everybody over there on Instagram. Hopefully y'all can hear me well. This mic that I'm wearing is connected to my Instagram live. LinkedIn is still taking a moment to come on. Facebook appears to be working properly. And it appears that Rumble and X are working. Let me check over on X to see if this is actually working. Let me see. X says that I am live, and it says I'm live. I'm clicking on it. Let me see. It looks like it's working, I think. You never know with this tech stuff, folks. You never know with this stuff. Connecticut is in the building. Carla, Indiana, good morning. Good to see you here. Christine said, you have officially become part of my morning routine. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing that. NC in the house. What part of NC are you in? Shout out to North Carolina. I got friends in Carolina. And are we good on Rumble? I'm assuming so. LinkedIn is giving me nothing, so I have no idea what's happening with LinkedIn. But we do need to get into this topic. I started about 15-ish minutes later than usual today, thanks to my parenthood. The fact that I am a parent. I had to start 15 minutes later than usual to tend to a child. But we are here. And speaking of parenthood, the topic here today is Mr. LeBron James. We're going to talk about LeBron James and his pulling up, as some of the younger folks like to call it, pulling up on Stephen A. Smith in the middle of a basketball game. It was in between quarters, I believe. It was during a timeout. He went and pulled up, as they say, on Stephen A. Smith because apparently LeBron had an issue with some of the things that Stephen A. Smith had been saying about LeBron James, and specifically not even LeBron James, but LeBron James's son. LeBron made it seem it was about him personally, but we're going to get into all of that here today. And I'm going to tell you why. I'll tell you up front what my angle is from this. LeBron James is out of line. He is completely out of line. I'm going to explain to you why LeBron James is out of line. So if you don't know what happened, LeBron James, all y'all know who he is, right? Even if you don't play sports, this is going to be an interesting topic for you, even if you're not a sports person. So LeBron James approached a guy named Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is a well-known sports, let's just call him a broadcaster. I would be disrespecting journalism to call him a journalist. He is not a journalist. And any journalistic credibility he sold it out during the virus a few years ago. So he's not a journalist. And he sold it out for several other reasons. So Stephen A. Smith, we're not giving him that title. We'll call him an analyst. He is a very, I think, in terms of business and in terms of drawing attention, we have to call this man a successful analyst because he is very popular. He is probably the most popular person when it comes to talking about the NBA as a commentator. He is the most popular person. So he has done that. He seems to be the #1 voice at ESPN in terms of their on-air talent. He is the #1 guy. And I find Stephen A. Smith entertaining. I like when he comes on and talks about certain things because he's pretty good at building his case and building his arguments. Doesn't mean he's always very intellectually deep, but he is pretty good at building his case. He is very good on camera. He is very good verbally in making his points, and that tends to draw a healthy amount of attention, which is why he's become who he has become. He's very good at the debating, everything that's necessary to be good in this era of TV/internet. Stephen A. Smith is very good at it. This is the reason why he is as popular as he is. So even if you disagree with that man, we cannot say that he is not successful because he is in the entertainment business TV is entertainment, and he is successful in that business in that he has stayed consistently employed for a consistent amount of time, and according to reports, he's getting paid pretty well. So Stephen A. Smith talks about the NBA a lot, and one of the topics in the NBA that gets talked about all the time is a guy named LeBron. All you know who LeBron is. Been in the NBA for over 20 years now. Been very good for damn near not damn near, literally the entire time. He's been very good. He's been an all-star level, superstar level player for the entire time. Won multiple championships in the NBA. Is looked at as probably one of the best, depending on who you ask, even people who don't like him so much. He's not their cup of tea as far as players. Nobody has him outside of the top 5 in the history of playing basketball. So you can't call that not a success. The guy, in terms of basketball, nobody has him outside the top 5, even if you grade him as terribly as you possibly can. Everybody has him at least in the top 5. Maybe some of you listening to this, have him in the top 1. Say he's the best basketball player of all time. I disagree with that, but I understand if that's the perspective that you have. That is not the topic here today. The topic has become, the reason I'm introducing these two individuals, the topic has become LeBron James has been so good for so long. And he's also a parent himself. I believe he has 3 children, last that I heard. His son, who was born, I guess, shortly after LeBron joined the NBA, maybe sometime around that period, his son is now in the NBA. His son is named LeBron James Jr., but he goes by Bronny, so we can separate the two people who are being talked about. Some of you may know about Bronny because you heard about LeBron James, so you hear about Bronny. Many of you probably don't know anything about Bronny on the court as far as his playing exploits go, and there's a reason for that, because Bronny has not been very good. Here's what happened. LeBron James's son, who was a freshman in college last year, he was going to the University of Southern California because LeBron lives in Southern California. He plays for the Lakers in Southern California, and I believe USC is right there in the city. LeBron James' son played at USC his freshman year in college, and he was not very good. He averaged, I believe the number was 5 points per game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is not a lot of points in basketball, by the way. Michael Jordan, for example, scored usually around 30 points per game. LeBron is a little bit less than that. Steph Curry will score 30 points. Kobe Bryant scored 30 points. You're scoring 5 points per game in basketball if your main thing is scoring, because some players, that's not their role. But if your main thing is scoring points and you're scoring 5 points per game, that means you're not very good. Okay, we can disagree. Bronny James was not very good his 1 year of college basketball. And during this year, a lot of people started asking LeBron, Dad, the question, hey, what do you think about the prospect or the possibility of you and your son playing together in the NBA? This would be unprecedented. No one's ever done it before. We have never seen a dad and a son playing the NBA together at the same time. We've seen sons come after their dads played in the NBA. For example, Scottie Pippen's son has played in the NBA. A bunch of people's are sons who play in the NBA. Steph Curry's dad played in the NBA, and Steph Curry has a brother. His brother has played in the NBA. Austin Rivers, his dad, Doc Rivers, he played in the NBA. There's a bunch of players who have followed in their dad's footsteps to play in the NBA, but not at the same time that the dad was still playing. That's unprecedented, because usually by the time your son is old enough to play in the NBA, let's say around 20 years of age, that means you are probably around 40 years of age, assuming you had your kids relatively young, and for you to still be good enough to still be playing in the NBA, and then your son be good enough to make it to the NBA, it's an anomaly. So this was a strange situation, and LeBron is an anomaly in terms of how he's played in the NBA. Again, you cannot knock him, even if you're not a fan of him. You can't knock what he's done on the basketball court. It is unprecedented, and it is not questionable. His basketball resume has never been on trial. Now, again, that's not the topic here today. LeBron responded, I'm sure he'd been thinking about this on his own, and he was saying it would be a great thing if me and my son can share the basketball court together. No one's done it before. It'd be great if I could do this. And I am not going to purport to read LeBron's mind, but through the things that he said over the years, even from very early in his career, it's been very obvious that LeBron's always had this focus on wanting to build just this legacy and this name and this brand, and wanting to be an icon and wanting to do things that other people had not done. Now, of course, you need a certain amount of talent and skill and performance to do so. And I believe he has been intentional in trying to build this LeBron, let's just call it legacy or image about himself, and anything that he has been able to do. Again, this is just my theory. Anything he's been able to do that can add to that to where he can say, I did that and nobody else did it. I believe that matters to LeBron James. And again, you only have to listen to him talk to hear him say it. It was very early in his career. I believe it was ESPN, the magazine, one of those magazines he was interviewed in. They were asking him, what's your goal for the future? And he said, I want to be a global icon. That was out of his mouth. He said he wanted to be a global icon. Not just the best basketball player in the world, but a global icon. After the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Golden State Warriors in the 2016 NBA Finals, a finals that very few people thought they were going to win. But by the way, I predicted that they would win. My receipts are on YouTube, where I predicted the Cavs were going to win that series, and they did. Look it up if you think I'm lying. And after he won that championship, LeBron was saying on his podcast or TV show, I believe me winning that championship, beating the Golden State Warriors, the team who have won 73 out of 82 NBA games, an NBA record, I believe that made me the greatest player of all time. And I'm bringing that up to say that, again, LeBron James has intentionally, continually, what's the word I'm going to call this? Manufactured, for lack of a better term, the narrative, a lot of people like to use that term, around himself to make sure everyone believes that he is the greatest player of all time and he's the greatest whatever of all time. This has all been intentional for him. All of that is said to say that his connecting to bringing his son to the NBA and playing on the same court as his son in an NBA game in live action during the season, this is another thing that he wanted to add to his kind of another trophy on his mantle. I got my son on the team with me. So what has ended up happening is his son left college after his freshman year. And any of you knows anything about basketball or follows basketball, we all know that the only reason his son left college to enter the NBA draft, because you don't just go to the NBA. You got to get drafted. You got to get chosen. Only reason his son left college to go to the NBA draft was not because his son played so well his freshman year. Just like, man, this guy's got to go to the NBA. Only reason he did it is because dad, by saying, this is what LeBron ended up saying later on last season, before his son came to the NBA. He said, if you want me on your team, you got to take my son. I want to be able to play with my son. It would be a great thing to play with my son. I want to share the court with my son. And as a matter of fact, once it got to the point that his son was entering the draft, it became, I'm going to share the court with my son. In other words, LeBron was declaring, whatever team my son has, that's the team I'm going to be on. Now, understand something. The only reason that statement mattered is because LeBron James is still very damn good. He's still one of the best 15 to 20 players in the NBA. Probably the most popular. Maybe not the best player, but he is one of the most popular, and he is still very good. He's an all-star level player. So when he said, anybody who has my son on their roster, that means you're also going to get me. So it was a package deal. Now, the thing is, we weren't sure about his son because his son hadn't played too well his freshman year of college. So people are like, well, is his son going to be any good in the NBA? We don't know. But based on projections and based on what we know about basketball and looking at what he did in college, his son, Bronny James, it was like, this guy's probably not going to do much in the NBA, which is what a lot of analysts and prognosticators of the draft said. This guy's probably not ready to play in the NBA right now, but maybe he can sit on the bench or play in the minor league of the NBA known as the G League, and he can develop. But if taking this guy and having someone on your roster who's probably not going to play much, but you get LeBron James with it, then we might need to do it. So long story short, you can maybe guess the surprise in this story. The team that LeBron already plays for, the LA Lakers, choose Bronny James in the draft, like the 55th pick. Close to the end of the draft, they choose Bronny James. He goes and gets on the LA Lakers roster. Long story short, he is not good, as predicted. Bronny James is not an NBA player. We already knew by watching him in college he was not prepared to play in the NBA. We already knew by watching him in college he would probably not be a solid producer in the NBA, and he is a bad player when he's playing in the NBA. Now, LeBron apologists, some people will call them that, but I'll just call them LeBron fans or defenders. People who just believe they're defending the situation will say, well, Bronny James is playing in the NBA's G League. The G League is the minor league of the NBA. So you know how baseball has the minor leagues. The NBA has a minor league. It's called the G League. Bronny James is playing most of the time he's on the court actually playing. He's playing in the minor league, in the G League. And according to reports, he's doing pretty well playing in the G League. When he has tried to play in the NBA games, like on the court with his dad, he's been terrible. Why? Because he's not a good player. He's not ready to play in the NBA. So all of that being said, I'm going to share my opinion on this entire situation. I basically just gave you the background of the situation with a little bit of opinion mixed in, but generally everything that I've said there, most people would generally agree with, even if you're going to disagree with the stuff that I'm about to say, because I didn't even get into what I'm really going to say here today. Oh, and I forgot to talk about Stephen A. Smith. So here's what ended up happening. Stephen A. Smith. He's this guy who talks about the NBA all the time. He's on ESPN. He has a podcast. He does media all the time. He's everywhere talking about basketball. He's the biggest voice in basketball. So if he's talking good about you, then he's influencing a lot of people. And if he's talking bad about you, he's influencing a lot of people. And whatever opinion he shares becomes a hot topic because everybody wants to debate. So Stephen A. Smith, on all his TV shows, et cetera, has been consistently saying LeBron James kind of messed up by ushering his son into the NBA. A point with which I agree. He messed up by doing that, and I'm going to explain why he messed up in a moment. And then Stephen A. has been saying Bronny James not playing well, which is very true. He's not playing well. He is not equipped to be in the NBA right now, which is also true. He should not be in the NBA taking up a roster spot. And the only reason this all happened is because LeBron wanted to do it not for his son, but for himself. I also agree with that. I don't know if Stephen A said that in so many words. I'm saying it in so many words. LeBron did this for himself, as I gave you that background of him wanting to build this legacy and be this guy who's done things that nobody else has ever done. Having his son play in the NBA with him is icing on the cake for LeBron's legacy, image, whatever you want to call it. This him being an icon. Hey, I even got my son in the NBA and played on the court with me. Just another thing that goes on his resume. I 100% believe that this was much more LeBron James's idea, daddy's idea, than it was the son's idea. Why? Because we look at the son's performance. There was nothing about his performance that said he was ready to go to the NBA, yet he went anyway because he had a security, a guarantee from his father that he was going to get on somebody's team because his father was coming as a package deal, which is a great deal for most teams. So what ended up happening is Stephen A. Smith was in LA at a Lakers game. He was sitting in the front row with a couple of his professional business partners, and LeBron was, of course, playing in the game. Now, LeBron, you see the video. This is the video that went viral that actually led to this whole conversation. He's sitting on the bench, and he looks over, and he sees Stephen A. Smith sitting there at courtside at the game. So in between breaks in the game, it was at a timeout or in between quarters, LeBron James walks over to Stephen A. Smith's courtside seat. Now, we do not hear what got said in the conversation, but Stephen A. Smith told us the gist of it, which was LeBron was annoyed with Stephen A. because Stephen A's been on TV basically lambasting this whole move of LeBron getting his son to the NBA, and his son's not even playing in the NBA because he's not good enough to play in the NBA. And apparently LeBron was pissed off with Stephen A, and he basically, I guess he calls himself checking him, or what some of the younger people say, pulling up on Stephen A. Smith to let him know, to verbally let him know, I don't like what you're saying about me and my son, and no, you're talking about me as a father, and LeBron just had an issue with that. He says this to Stephen A. Smith, allegedly, according to Stephen A.'s recounting of the story. Now, in the video, you can see LeBron talking because the fans are sitting, they can see the court. So they're videoing LeBron and Stephen A. talking. So you can see LeBron speaking, and you can tell by the body language that he's not happy. You can't hear what Stephen A. is saying. You can't even see his mouth moving because you only see the back of his head. Stephen A. is in a suit, and you can only see the back of his head, and I can tell that he's talking because LeBron ain't saying anything. He's looking at him. Stephen A. gets the last word, whatever he says, then LeBron walks away, and they continue playing in the game. The next day, Stephen A. goes on, I don't know if it was ESPN, I think it was ESPN, or his podcast, whatever, and he tells everybody, here's what happened. LeBron was approaching me as a father. He didn't like the fact that I've been talking about his fatherhood or what he did with his son. All that being said, now let me get into, I just gave you all basically the background. Okay, now everything that comes from this point forward is going to be there's going to be some fact here, there's going to be some truth, and there's going to be opinion. All right, everybody ready for that? Let's go. Yes, Colin, this happened during the game, but it was during the timeout. So it was in between the quarters or during the timeout. And LeBron James has a lot of cachet with his team, so he kind of can get away with it. So, number one, let's just start with the simple stuff first. A lot of younger men, let's say maybe under the age of, actually some older guys who talk like this too, they talk about pulling up. LeBron pulled up on Stephen A. Smith. So a lot of LeBron fans were all excited about this. Oh, he pulled up on Stephen A. Smith. Because Stephen A. has gone on basically a media tour after this happened over the last week and a half, talking about how he didn't like what LeBron did. And the reasoning Stephen A. Smith has provided is that he said, LeBron, if you have an issue with what I've been saying about your son on TV, you have my direct phone number. Your business partners, your agents, all the people you work with, they all know me. They all have direct access to me. Any one of them could have called me and said, yo, LeBron wants to have a man-to-man conversation with you. Stephen A. says, I would have flew out to LA and had a face-to-face conversation with you where we could talk in private about whatever it is that you want to say, and I could say whatever it is that I want to say. You didn't do that. That's what Stephen A. says. Then he also says, even at the game, if you wanted to talk to me, you could have came over to me at my seat and said, yo, hey, Stephen A., when the game's over, please meet me over there because I want to have a conversation with you. You could have did that, but you didn't do that. This is Stephen A.'s position. You didn't do that. You could have just called me and had a real conversation with me where we could have both said everything we wanted to say, and we both would have been prepared for the conversation. You didn't do that. You came over, we had a 30-second conversation, then you walked away. So Stephen A. is saying he didn't like the way LeBron approached this. But a lot of LeBron fans are saying, well, Stephen A. gets on TV and talks shit about people every day, which is true. He does get on TV and talk shit every day. That's literally his job. And LeBron happens to be one of the subjects because he's a very popular subject. So what a lot of people who are, let's say, on LeBron's side in this situation are saying, well, hey, Stephen A., you talk all day about people. So when someone runs up on you and pulls up on you to say what they got to say, you got to be able to take it the same way that you dish it out. I, on some levels, understand this. On some levels, I do understand it. Stephen A. dishes it out all day, every day on TV. One thing I will say about Stephen A. Smith, even though he's not a journalist and a beat reporter, is that anytime I've seen him having a conversation or with athletes, and I've heard him say this many times, Stephen A. is a New Yorker. I don't know what part of New York he's from. One of you probably knows. But Stephen A. is not I don't consider Stephen A. Smith to be a punk. I don't read him as a punk. I'm saying that to say he's not the type of dude who's talking a whole bunch of yin yang on a camera, but then he won't actually show up physically in places. He does physically show up in places. I see him on video all the time, physically in places. I've heard him say it himself many times. I go to the games. He does go to the games because he does broadcasting work for ESPN and stuff. And he's at these places, and a lot of athletes have had issues with him over the years, mostly basketball players, because that's mostly what he talks about. Nobody's ever put their hands on him. And if someone does approach him, they generally tend to approach him in a respectful way because they can tell that he's not a guy you're just going to walk up on. Now, if they got into a physical altercation, would he win? Maybe not. He's over 50 years of age. You're talking to these athletes who are in their primes, but nobody's ever done it. So I understand the perspective of people saying, well, you got to deal with someone coming at you because you come at people on TV all day. At the same time, when we want to talk about pulling up, what you gentlemen call, in the era that I come from, we just call that stepping to somebody. If you're going to do it, and you're going to do it to somebody that you know, here's a line that I draw. If I know you, and you said something I got a problem with, the first thing I'm going to do is reach out to you directly. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So if I'm here, and I'm just living my life, and I hear you saying something on your podcast or your YouTube channel or on TV about me that I do not really feel what you're saying, first thing I'm going to do, if I know you, is I'm going to reach out to you directly. Or I have a way of reaching you, I'm going to reach you directly. That's the first thing I'm doing. And Stephen A. Smith, this is a point for him because he said this. Like, your man knows me, your agent knows me, all your business partners know me. Why you ain't just call me and say what you had to say then, or just tell me, hey, let's have a conversation? I would have came to you to have the conversation. For him to just, quote unquote, pull up in the middle of the game and not even give me a chance to prepare, because what makes it real is that if you want to talk about being manly and you want to consider it tough what LeBron did, what's really tough is if you tell someone before you're going to do it that you're going to do it, then do it. That's what's actually tough. So you want to talk about pulling up. And this is especially important for all the men who are listening to this. If you're going to pull up on another man, the most real thing you can do is tell him you're going to pull up to him and then pull up. Not surprise him by pulling up. LeBron surprised Stephen A. by pulling up because Stephen A. said, I was at the game. Of course, he knew LeBron was there. But he and LeBron are not on, it's not like they're friends. They're not on these great speaking terms. So he didn't even expect LeBron to approach him. So when LeBron approached him, it surprised him. And what I'm saying is, if LeBron wanted to be all the way real, what he should have did was say, yo, Stephen A. He could have walked over it. Yo, Stephen A. After the game, meet me over there. Let's have a conversation. Then at least Stephen A., for the rest of the game, he's thinking, okay, I know I'm going to have a conversation with this man. He could have gathered his thoughts and been prepared for the conversation. But you just pulled up on him and surprised him. And again, it ain't that LeBron did anything necessarily wrong by approaching him, but all the people who are fans of LeBron saying, well, LeBron did the real thing by pulling up. Not really. The real thing would have been letting them know he was going to pull up and then doing it. Because that way, the other man is prepared. It's kind of like if you know a man and you're going to punch him in the face. It's one thing to walk up and punch somebody in the face who doesn't know that you're about to punch him in the face. It's another thing you say to him, yo, when I see you, I'm going to punch you in your face. And then you approach him and say, all right, stand up, put your hands up because I'm about to punch you in the face. Now I'll give him a chance to defend himself. If we want to go that route. Right? I'm not saying everyone do this. We don't need to be violent. Right? I'm a non-violent individual. But if y'all want to talk like that, then let's keep it all the way real. That's the all the way real. Now, moving on to the next point. Now, as I've been talking about Bronny James, because this whole thing is about Bronny James, LeBron's son, who most of you wouldn't even know what he looked like if he walked past you in the street. He is not a good NBA player. He should not be in the NBA. He is in the G League, which is fine, and he seems to be doing well in the G League. We'll get into that in a moment. What I found, whenever I've talked about this subject, I made a post on Instagram about this a couple days, and a whole bunch of men came out of the woodwork to defend, quote unquote, LeBron James's son in this situation. And this is something I've been saying for years. I have receipts on this to go back 20 years. And this is especially pernicious in the black community, and LeBron James is black, is that we tend to default to doing a whole lot of cheerleading for entertainers and athletes. And it's always annoyed me when people do this. Doesn't mean you can't be a fan. Like I'm a fan. I'm a fan of players. I think LeBron James is, after Michael Jordan, and from what I've seen in my life, the next best player I've seen. It was Jordan and LeBron. All right, from my purview of sports. I was not old enough to see Magic and Larry. I didn't see Wilt Chamberlain. I didn't really see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. From the time I've been following basketball, the best player I saw was Jordan. The next best player I saw was LeBron. So if that makes me a fan, okay, fine. I can be a fan. But there's a difference between being a fan and being a cheerleader. I'm not a cheerleader of anyone. I'm not a cheerleader of any entertainer. I'm not a cheerleader of any politician. I'm not a cheerleader of any athlete. I can respect them and say that they're good. And if you ask me, I'll tell you exactly how I feel. But in the black community, especially with males, actually females are guilty of this too, but males, I notice more because I'm a man. And I'm big on holding men accountable because when men do their jobs, women fall in line. And if men are not doing their jobs, then we get chaos. So the men there's a whole lot of cheerleading going on for LeBron James. And the issue with that cheerleading is not that there's anything wrong with liking LeBron. He's a very good player. You should like him. If you're going to follow a basketball player, he's a good one to pattern yourself after, at least in some ways. The issue is LeBron ain't cheerleading for you. And when I saw the way that people were responding to my critique of LeBron James the other day, let me see if I can pull up my post. I can tell you exactly what I said. You can find it on my Instagram, by the way. If you're not following me on Instagram, the link is in my profile. So what I said on Instagram was 2 days ago. I said, is LeBron's son a boy or a man? Was the question. Then I said, he's in a man's league. I'm talking about his son. The NBA is a man's league. It stands for National Basketball Association, but some people colloquially will say no boys allowed, NBA, no boys allowed. He's in the league only because his dad guaranteed him a spot. Because again, LeBron said, if you want me, rather, you got to pick my son. And he can't perform. That's the next thing I said. And you as a dad, LeBron, you go running to defend your son / defend your ego, because that's what this is really about. LeBron approaching Stephen A. Smith is not about defending his son. It is not about defending his parenting. You're talking about me as a father. Really, LeBron? No. Everybody in the world talks about this dude every day. So you can't run up on everybody. Everybody talks about him. So you're defending him / your ego because the situation is being critiqued and it deserves to be critiqued. And at the same time, every time you do that, LeBron, and make it about you, because think about it. This whole situation when LeBron approached Stephen A. Smith, what have we been talking about for the last week and a half? Those of you who are basketball fans, and this particular situation, LeBron James approaches Stephen A. Smith over, allegedly, what Stephen A. Smith has said about Bronny James. What have we been talking about? What have been the subjects of this conversation? Regardless of what side you're on. The only subjects of the conversation, because it's about 3 different entities. Stephen A. Smith, LeBron James, Bronny James. Do you notice that the whole conversation for the last week and a half has only been about 2 of those entities? LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. No one's even talking about Bronny James. He's not even mentioned. He's an afterthought to the whole situation. So if we're looking at it like that, because remember what I told you all, life is a performance and a results-based business. The results of LeBron James's action of approaching Stephen A. Smith has been what? More conversation about him and Stephen A. Smith. Nobody's talking about his son. I thought the whole thing was he was trying to defend his son. Wasn't that the whole point? Wasn't the point of LeBron approaching Stephen A. Smith to defend the honor of his son or defend his position as a father, which means you have kids, is all about your kids, right? Why is nobody talking about his kids? So the result, again, if LeBron James asked me, I would say, LeBron, the result of your action, maybe your intention was to help out your son and defend your honor as a father. But the result of your action is that nobody's talking about your son. Everybody's talking about you, which is exactly what led to this situation in the first damn place. That's what I would say to LeBron James. The situation exists because you wanted to do something for you. You wanted to put it on your resume that you got your son into the NBA and you and him shared the court in the NBA. You're the first person to do it. You're the only person to have done it. So you did it. You achieved it. The problem is everybody's talking about you. Now it's defending your honor as a parent or defending your ego or defending your son, whatever way he wants to frame it. Doesn't matter what the reason is. Again, your intention is one thing. The outcome is another thing. The outcome is everybody's talking about you. Nobody's talking about Bronny James. Nobody. Why? Because, first of all, as far as being a basketball player, Bronny James is not worth talking about. He can't play. That's the reality. He cannot play in the NBA. Now, some people will say he's in the G League. We're going to get to the G League part in a second. So just hold that thought. Okay? So I believe LeBron's the best player of this generation. I said that already, right? This whole century, he's been the best player we've seen this century. I'm not counting Jordan's Wizard years. That don't count. At the same time that can make me a fan, I'm not a fanatic, as I said. Whether I mention him positively or negatively, I'm using him as a frame. So some people may say, well, Dre, you are talking about him right now. So you're using him for your content. Well, I'm using him as a frame. Same way I would use Mr. AT, the banned off social media guy who's the kickboxer from Romania. Same way I would use Donald Trump. I would use MAGA. I would use Black Lives Matter or DEI, whatever I want to talk about. I just use them as frames. The star of the show here is not LeBron James. How often have you heard me talk about LeBron? You've been following my lives. Do I talk about LeBron James? No. I'm not Stephen A. Smith. I talk about whatever subject I pull from current events, social issues, etc., and I use it as a frame to break the issue down, because my superpower is breaking issues down and complex issues into simple understandings. So it's not about using LeBron. I am using him, but it's not like this is my full-time job. Again, I ain't Stephen A. Smith. So if all the people who I just mentioned never existed and they all disappeared, I would still be doing the same thing. I would just use a different subject. So I just use subjects as they're available. They're disposable as far as I'm concerned. So now the other thing is earning your position. This is the issue that a lot of young black men, this is mostly what I've seen, actually not young black men, just black men period, have had when it comes to defending the LeBron situation. Because what LeBron essentially did here is he used nepotism to get his son a job in the NBA. That's basically what this was. And most people agree that's what happened. Bronny James, the son, did not play his way into the NBA. Most people generally agree with that. So LeBron, with all this power and leverage that he has with the NBA and the Lakers, he was able to get his son into a job that his son otherwise would not have had. Now, does this happen every day? Absolutely, it happens every day. Has it mostly historically been the domain of white men to do this? The answer is absolutely yes. We can't act like that's not true. It's generally been the domain of a white man who has some leverage and some power in a certain space, not in sports, not playing sports. Let's talk about, but anywhere else, work-wise, professionally, that's outside of playing sports, generally has been white men who've been able to do this. Get their son a job or their daughter a job that the daughter or son otherwise may not have gotten or been qualified for. So all LeBron did, what some of his fans say, is the same thing that white men have been doing for centuries, or at least decades. Is this true? Yes, it is. That's true. However, this is the part that a lot of people don't understand. And if you have never played a sport, you may not understand this. I've played sports, and I've been talking about sports for a long time, so I can explain this very well. The sports world, as far as playing a sport, I'm not talking about coaching and management. Coaching and management are no different than corporate America. Okay, so coaching in sports and managing in sports are the same as corporate America. Same rules they got, same rules they have in sports. But on the court or on the field, there is no nepotism. That does not exist in sports. You cannot nepo baby your child into a spot on a roster and on a professional sport for long, because if they're no good, they will end up out of there. This usually does not happen. There are a few exceptions. One exception is a guy named Giannis Antetokounmpo, plays for the Milwaukee Bucks. His brother is on the Milwaukee Bucks roster and has been for several years. Now, can his brother play? No. His brother cannot play the same way LeBron James' son cannot play. And because of nepotism, because Giannis is the man, he's one of the best players in the NBA and has been for several years, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's won a championship. Because Giannis is present on that roster, his brother gets to have a roster spot in the NBA. Everybody knows his brother can't play. His brother probably knows that he can't play. But he's an exception. Again, the reason why you can name the exceptions is because there are so few of them. And there are other people in the history of the NBA, in case any of you didn't know. Michael Jordan had two sons that played basketball. They both played college basketball. Neither one of them is good enough to play in the pros. And Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan couldn't even get his sons into the NBA based off his name. He couldn't do it. Alonzo Mourning has a son who played basketball. Y'all don't even know who his son is. Dwayne Wade has a son who played basketball. I'm not talking about his son who turned into a girl. He has another son, an older son. He didn't even play in college. He went straight to playing in the G League. His son, Dwayne Wade's son, ain't that good. His son is just not very talented. That's why he's not in the NBA, and most of you don't know who he is. Who else got a son? Shaquille O'Neal has a son. Shaquille O'Neal's son was in college playing. His son decided he was going to leave college early to go try and make the NBA. And Shaquille O'Neal, y'all may not know about this, Shaquille O'Neal told his son, "You're not ready to play in the NBA. You need to stay in college and get better." And his son disagreed, and his son tried to make the NBA anyway. Has any of you seen Shaquille O'Neal's son in the NBA? No, because he hasn't played in the NBA. The point being, folks, even these legendary players who all of you know and have heard of, even if you're not a basketball fan, they couldn't even get their sons into the NBA. LeBron was able to do it. That's the exception to the rule. This usually does not happen. And that doesn't necessarily make LeBron bad. Here's the issue and the reason why I'm bringing it up. In the sports world, you must earn your way in. This is the reason why sports is called the ultimate meritocracy. At least by me. That's what I call it. The closest thing to a meritocracy you get in life, you don't know what meritocracy means. It means the best people win and the best performers get the biggest prizes. And they make the most money and they get the biggest trophies. Sports is the closest thing you will ever come to seeing that happen. The corporate world ain't meritocratic. Any kind of bureaucracy is not meritocratic. The government, academia, the corporate world, and most of you work in a place that is similar to that, those are not meritocracies. Next closest thing you're going to get to a meritocracy is a sales job, where there are quotas and you can see everybody's numbers is all up on the board every day. And if you work in sales, that's a close to meritocracy. Sports is the ultimate meritocracy because the sports world is decided by a scoreboard, it's not decided by a person. Anything that's decided by a human being can't be meritocratic because human beings have biases and leanings and they have stuff going on. They have opinions. Scoreboard doesn't have an opinion. It just tells you what it is, straight up, black and white, no nonsense, no stories, no excuses. That's why sports is a meritocracy, which is why all of these players who have kids who went to play basketball, the only ones who actually ended up making it to the NBA, like Steph Curry's dad was named Del Curry. Steph Curry is a lot better than his dad was. But the reason why Steph Curry's in the NBA is because Steph Curry can play. His dad didn't get him into the NBA. Steph Curry got himself into the NBA because he can play. And Dwayne Wade, for example, his son, didn't get himself into the NBA because he can't play. And when I say he can't play, I'm not saying he can't play at all. I'm saying at the NBA level, he can't play. All right, Bronny James cannot play at the NBA level. We already know this. All right, look at the results. This is a results-based business. All right, you hear me say these things over and over and over again. Personally, I had 20 years of receipts on earning your position because there was someone, when I made my post on Instagram the other day, there was someone who was saying, well, Dre, if you were in a position, you would do the same thing. I said, absolutely, I would not. And here's why. Again, it's not like I'm just saying this for the sake of the conversation. I got 20 years of receipts talking about this stuff. 20 years of receipts. I've been telling young men, because when I first came out, those of you who have only found out about me in the last year or so, when I first came out on the internet, 2005 through 2015, I was mostly making basketball content and mostly talking to basketball players. I started talking about mindset around 2010, but from 2005 to 2015, I had a whole lot of basketball players in my audience. And naturally, I would get a lot of ball players coming to me telling me about their challenges and issues in basketball, i.e., I didn't make the team. The players who I play with don't respect me. Nobody's passing me the ball, etc. I would get these kind of complaints from players every day, multiple times, every single day. Now, any of you who's been following me for a while, you can fill in the gaps. I don't know if there's anybody here who fits that description. What have I been telling young men for 2 decades about their failures on the basketball court? My position has never changed. If you play basketball and you're not getting the ball, or you're not making the team, or you're not scoring as many points as you want, or you're not getting any minutes, or you're not getting in the game, whatever the situation is, my position has never, ever, ever been different than what I'm about to tell you right now. The reason you're failing on the court is because you can't play. I've never said anything different than that. I've been standing on that square for 20 years. Check my receipts. If I'm lying, somebody call me out on it. You didn't make the high school team because you can't play. You're right-handed and you can't make a layup with your left hand. All right, you can't dribble, you keep bouncing the ball with your foot. The team's supposed to be doing this, you're doing that. You don't play defense, you get scored on too easily every time. You get an open jump shot, you can't make it. The reason you didn't make it is because of your performance. I've been on that frame the entire time. What did I just tell you all? This is a performance and a results-based business. Therefore, if your business, follow me, is not going the way you want it to go, is because your performance are not producing the requisite results to get your business to where you want it to go. This is where I've been on this frame forever. Okay, I want everybody to understand that. Yes, work on your game, noble life, exactly. I've been on this frame the entire time. So what I'm saying about Bronny James is the same thing I would say to my own son. When my son, let's say he decides he wants to play a sport. All right, he decides let's say he wants to go into business. Let's say my son wants to go into business and he wants to get his foot in the door. Well, I'll help him get his foot in the door in business. And by using my name and my image and likeness and leverage, whatever I have, yes, I will. Why? Because that's normal business practice. The business world, ladies and gentlemen, is about relationships. Any of you who doesn't know, now you know. Any of you who's in business, and you don't have to be an entrepreneur, just in business period, getting jobs. Any of you ever got a job interview because you had a friend who already worked at the company? Any of you ever got a job interview for a friend because you worked at the company? Any of you ever done that? Put me in the comments if any of you has ever done that. You ever got a job interview or you got an interview for one of your friends just because you knew somebody or they knew you and you were able to help them kind of get their foot in the door? That's normal professional practice. In the business world, outside of sports, we do that all day, every day. So if my son wants some help getting into some type of professional space and I can use my name to help him, I will absolutely help him. I won't even think twice about it. As a matter of fact, I would hope, and this is what I tell all adults out there, any of you who has kids, especially those of you who grew up in such a way that your parents did not have leverage and they did not have a name and they couldn't kind of help you get in because they didn't know anybody and they didn't have status. If you grew up with parents who didn't have enough status to get you in the door, then if you're a parent today, your job is to make sure you have enough status to get your kids in the door. That's when I talk about self accountability and holding yourself to a standard. This is what it's all about. This is the ethos of what I've been about for 20 years. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. I've been on this square the entire time, even back when I was doing basketball content, and nobody can tell me that I haven't. The point being, if my son wants to get in the business world, I'll help him out. Why? Because everybody does it. However, if my son says, Dad, I'm trying to get on this sports team, I'm trying to get into this sports league, you played sports, can you help me get in? Well, I'm going to find out what the situation is. First, I'm going to do some discovery. And good salespeople, this is what we do. As soon as someone comes over with a challenge, we don't immediately offer a solution. First, we find out what the actual problem is. Sometimes the problem is not what they think it is. I'm going to go into discovery. What sport are you trying to play? What have you tried up to this point? Why do you need my help? Why aren't you just on the team already? What's going on? I'm going to find out. And if it turns out the reason that he's not on the team is because his performance is not that good, I'm going to tell him that right to his face. Son, the reason you're not on the team is because you can't play. All right, you're right-handed, son, and you're pretty good with your right hand, but why can't you make a layup with your left hand? Why can't you dribble with your left hand? All right, why are you not playing defense? I just watched the game. That guy scored on you 3 times in a row, and you don't seem to be giving any effort on defense. No wonder you're not getting in the game. I will tell my son that directly to his face. I've been telling young men this for 20 years. Again, I'm on the record. I'm saying all this to say this. I'm saying all that, to say this. The bottom line in the sports world is you got to perform. That's it. Bottom line in the sports world is you must perform. If you cannot perform, you will be immediately exposed and pulled off the court, off the field, etc. I'll give you an example. A lot of y'all don't know about this example. So Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan got 2 sons. Tillman, what's going on, my dude? Good to see you. This mic, I'll tell you where I got it from. Actually, did I buy it on Amazon? I bought it on Amazon. I'll send you the affiliate link so I can get paid off it when you buy it. But this is a great mic. It's perfect. So anyway, it costs $150. I will tell you that. But send me a DM. I'm my assistant will give you the link. Anyway, Michael Jordan had 2 sons. All right, now he has one son is the one that was dating Scottie Pippen's chick. That one, I think that's the younger son. Actually, I seen him in Miami. I would see them in Miami every now and then because they lived not too far away from me. I would see them going out to get in their car. But anyway, it's a different story, not the topic. His older son, Michael Jordan's older son, was playing basketball. They both played basketball, but his older son played basketball in high school. And I remember the same year that his older son was a senior, there was a guy named Eric Gordon. Y'all know Eric Gordon. He plays in NBA to this day. He's older now. He's kind of more of a role player, later into the rotation guy now. But Eric Gordon was a superstar high school basketball player. So they were seniors, I think, the same year. And Michael Jordan's son, his team, was playing against Eric Gordon's team. And I think the game was on ESPN or TV or something. Eric Gordon had like 40-something points, just destroying Michael Jordan's son's team. Michael Jordan's son was not a very talented player. I'm bringing all that up to say this. Michael Jordan used to have, I don't think this game exists anymore. Somebody let me know if it does. It was called the Jordan Classic. And every year, it was like, you know how you had a McDonald's All-American game? That's all the best high school players in the country. For example, LeBron played in the McDonald's All-American game. He was very good. All the players you know about. Kobe Bryant played in this game. All the best players played in the McDonald's. Michael Jordan played in the McDonald's All-American game. It was a big game. Michael Jordan had this game called the Jordan Classic. It was kind of like parallel to the McDonald's game. That you had a McDonald's game, then you go play in the Jordan game. So when the Jordan Classic game came, the year that Michael Jordan's son was a senior, Michael Jordan put his son on the roster for the Jordan Classic game. This is an all-star game of all the best high school players in the country. Michael Jordan's son was not one of the best high school players in the city, let alone the state, let alone the country. He was not good at all. But Michael Jordan put his son on the roster because Michael Jordan had the power to do so. And any of y'all find the video of this. I don't know if the video's on YouTube. Michael Jordan probably got it scrubbed off the internet. But Michael Jordan's son got in the game during that Jordan Classic and he got embarrassed. Why did he get embarrassed? Because Michael Jordan's son couldn't play. That's why he got embarrassed. He couldn't play. Now here's what ends up happening. Michael Jordan's still Michael Jordan. All right, your son could be as big a bum as you want, but hey, I'll treat your son like he's good if that means I can get in some favor with Michael Jordan. Because why? Because Michael Jordan's Michael Dan Jordan, especially in Illinois and Chicago, because this is where Jordan was at the time. So Michael Jordan's son goes and plays college basketball at some school in Illinois. I don't remember what school he was playing at, but he went to, I believe it was a Division I school in the state of Illinois, and he was on the basketball team. He did a whole lot of nothing. Again, why not? I'm not knocking Michael Jordan's son if he's listening to this, but he just wasn't good. So he played maybe a year, maybe 2 years, or a year and a half, something like that. And then it was quietly announced that Michael Jordan's son was leaving the basketball team. He was going to focus on other things. That's the last time we ever heard that guy's name. He's going on. I'm sure he's living a good life and maybe has a good family and a good career running Michael Jordan's businesses, whatever it is he's doing. But we never heard about that guy ever again. And that's not the son that was on the reality TV show. That's the younger son. The older son, you never hear his name. He's quietly just living his life. So it's no diss to him. I didn't even say his actual name because I'm not trying to diss the guy. The point being, that's Michael Jordan. If anybody got pulled with basketball next to LeBron, is Michael damn Jordan. He couldn't get his own son somewhere in basketball. And his son, luckily, unlike LeBron's situation, Michael Jordan's son had enough humility to realize basketball is not my path. And he got out of basketball. Now, disclaimer, we do have to offer a grain of salt to this. Maybe LeBron's son is just better than Michael Jordan's son. That's possible. Maybe LeBron's son is better than Michael Jordan's son. The problem is we don't really know yet. We don't know yet because there was no G League back then. So was it the G League? Maybe there was the D League. It used to be called the D League. Now it's called the G League. The point is Michael Jordan's son couldn't play. And not even Michael Jordan could change that reality. LeBron James' son, only reason he's in the NBA is because his dad got him in. Does anybody disagree with that? Nobody's disagreeing with that point, right? Even if you don't like my angle here, and I'm not even done yet. Only reason Bronny James in the NBA is because dad got him in. His dad said, if you want me, you got to pick my son. That's it. Or if you pick my son, you get me. That's what he said. As soon as LeBron James said that, first of all, he made it clear his purpose was, I want me and my son to play basketball together. LeBron James stated that as his purpose. As soon as you do that, and here's where I hold LeBron James to task. You made it about you. That's not about your son. You are using your son to achieve your own goal, which is kind of a ridiculous thing for LeBron James to do because by all intents and purposes, LeBron has not only met but exceeded expectations of himself ever since he came into the NBA. He's met and exceeded every single expectation. Doesn't mean he had to be the greatest of all time, but he's up there. He's in the conversation. And all the expectations that were put on LeBron, those of you old enough to remember when he came into the NBA, the most hyped NBA draft prospect in history, LeBron James was and still to this day. No one has surpassed that hype of LeBron James even to this day. Nobody who's come in the league has had the hype that he had. And he not only met it, but surpassed it. That's a absolute fact. I don't even like calling opinions facts, but that's the closest to a fact you can get. Even if you don't like LeBron, you can't deny that. Why does he need to use his son to achieve another dream of his own? That's the issue that I would have with this whole thing with LeBron and his son. Why do you need to use your son for that? Let your son be his own guy. You are already the guy. Again, just like Michael Jordan. LeBron, you are already the guy. Anytime you and your son walk into the room, everybody's looking at you because you're you. Can you give this kid some space to be whoever he's going to become? Maybe he will become it on the basketball court. Maybe he will. Maybe he will decide basketball ain't for me and go become somebody doing something else. But we don't know because LeBron is not giving this kid room to breathe. As soon as he announced, if you want me on your team, you got to pick my son. The first thing I'm thinking to myself is, look at your son's stats in college. Is he even ready to be in the draft? Should he even be in the draft? Should he be in college right now? If you ask me, LeBron James' son should be on a college campus right now at USC, having fun, going to parties, and playing on the basketball team. Right now, basketball season probably over or close to the tournament. He should be being a college kid right now. Why? Because his performance says he's a college player, not an NBA player. That's what his performance said. And this is a performance-based business, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as LeBron announced, I want to play in the NBA with my son, because not like LeBron can go back to college. He never went to college. So the only way that they can play together is my son got to come to the NBA. The problem is your son's not ready to play in the NBA, and we know that. So you got your little moment. Now you and your son got on the court together. You got this historic moment, if y'all want to call that historic. I consider it a watered down moment, but whatever. If you're a LeBron fan, call it historic. No problem. Now that happened. You got your moment, LeBron. You got that. You added that to your resume, LeBron. Now what? What's your son doing now? Now your son's playing in the G League. And we're going to get to the G League in a minute, because there are some LeBron fans / apologists saying, well, he's doing great in the G League. We're going to get to that in one moment. LeBron James did not say, I want my son to be with me on the Lakers to have his son playing in the G League. The reason why LeBron's son is playing in the G League, because even LeBron, with his monumental powers and pull and cachet, he could not get the LA Lakers to keep Bronny James on the roster, the main roster, because Bronny James is not good enough to be on the main roster. LeBron James couldn't even do it. I guarantee you he tried. Guarantee you he had some conversations. Hey, can my son just be on the roster all season? The problem was the coaches and the management probably said to LeBron, and this is just my theory, they probably said to him, LeBron, your son's not going to play. If he's on the roster, he's going to sit on the bench all year. All right, he's gonna his back is gonna be hurting because he's gonna be sitting in the chair all day. Because he ain't getting on the court, he can't play. So if you want your son to actually play and get better, which is supposed to be the goal, LeBron, remember, it's not just about you. We got to send him down to the minor league, the G League, where he can actually get some playing time. And he's getting playing time in the G League, doing what he needs to do. And again, I'm going to touch on that momentarily. So the minor league achievements, yeah, we'll get to that. So regardless of what Bronny James is doing in the G League, because people are like, well, he's averaging 20 points in the G League. Was the goal to have him in the G League? Was that the goal? Did LeBron James say, I want to make sure my son is in the G League while I'm still playing in the NBA? No, he never said that. He never said I want my son to be in the G League. His goal was I want my son on the Lakers with me. He was, for the moment they got their little picture, they played in the game together. Now where is he? Was that your goal, LeBron? Have your son playing in the G League? And those of you who don't know anything about the G League, let's just put it this way. I'll talk about it a little bit more later in this broadcast. You are much better off being a college kid and enjoying college life than you are playing in the G League. Okay? Let's just put it that way. Bronny James has a much better life, had a much better life on campus at college, whatever he was doing. I don't even know what he was doing. Never even been to USC's campus. Guarantee you had a better life at USC than he has playing in the damn G League. But again, LeBron did this. He made this about him. And that's the issue that I have with him. If you want to say as a father, that's the issue. Because for me, let me just say this as my frame. Talking about another man. I generally don't talk. There are two topics when it comes to other men that you need to be, as a man, you need to be very careful speaking on. You don't speak on another man's woman, and you don't speak on another man's kids. Those are two principles that I stand on. I don't speak on another man's woman. I don't speak on his kids. Now, if you're a public figure and you put your woman and or your kids on the internet, well, guess what? People are going to leave comments because you made it a subject by putting it out there. And if you put your woman or your kids on the internet, people are going to have comments. You can't get mad when people start commenting on something that you gave them to talk about. And if you're already a person who gets talked about a lot, and then you put your woman or your kids on the internet with you, well, you're bringing them into the line of fire. You did that. Dad, you did that. Husband, you did that. Grown man. If you didn't want them talked about, don't put it out there. I heard a man once say, I didn't get married to have my marriage on social media. That's a good way of looking at it for some of you who don't want that type of scrutiny. Point being, LeBron James went and said, if you want me on your team, you got to pick my son. So as soon as you say that, LeBron, you're making it about you as a father. As soon as you frame it that way, now the fact that you're a father and this is your kid, now it's part of the public conversation because you made it part of the public conversation. If he would have just said, I hope Bronny has a great career in the NBA wherever he ends up, the conversation would have been different. That's not what he said. He said, number one, I want to spend time on the court with my son on the same team. Number one. Number two, if you want me, you got to get him. So you made it about you being a father. That's the way he framed it. I'm his father. If you want me on the team, you got to get my son on the team. That doesn't happen in sports. And this is the issue. So even though what LeBron did is exceptional, because he's an exception to the rule that you can't get your son on the team, as soon as you do that, now the fact that you're the dad and he's the son is part of the conversation because you chose to make it that way. You chose to leverage your fatherhood to get your son on the roster. Now we get to talk about your fatherhood, LeBron. That's what it is. So anybody has an issue with Stephen A. talking about LeBron James' fatherhood, don't be mad at Stephen A. Smith. Be mad at LeBron James. He put the fact that he was a father on the front line and made it part of the conversation. As soon as you do that, we're allowed to talk about it. Now, if he wasn't talking about his kids and he wasn't talking about, like, notice nobody ever talks about LeBron James' wife. Notice nobody ever talks about her. He has a wife. Nobody ever talks about her. You know why nobody talks about her? Number one, she don't talk too much. And number two, he don't talk about her. But he talks about his son. And he keeps talking about his son. He keeps front-lining the fact that he has a son who plays basketball. You are allowing us to talk about it because you are putting him on camera. As soon as you do that, it's open season. That's the way it works, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as you put yourself out there on the internet, people can talk about you. Why? Because you put yourself out there. You don't want to be talked about. Don't put yourself out there. And this is a binary. All right? It's not I'm going to put myself out there, but only talk about me in the way that I want you to talk about me. Bullshit. So when it comes to Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James, let me make sure this is being said. LeBron James' real problem is not with Stephen A. Smith. His real problem is not with Stephen A. Smith. His real problem is with the conversation around his behavior. And Stephen A. Smith just happens to be the mouthpiece of the conversation. But his issue is not really with Stephen A. Smith. His issue is with everybody talking about this in the way that I'm talking about it. And he can't approach everybody. Now, he can't pull up, quote unquote, on everybody. So he pulled up on the most prominent figure in the entire situation. But his issue is not really with Stephen A. Smith, the person. His issue is with the conversation because this didn't quite go the way that I think he thought it was going to go. That's just my theory. I think he thought people would kind of bow at his feet and his son would be a little bit better player. And this would be this beautiful season of him being with his son together. And it'd be like this storybook Disney movie type of thing. It ain't work out that way. Now I believe he's a little bit frustrated with the situation. And he is dealing with a ton of backlash from a lot of people who generally didn't give him backlash, myself included. And now he got to figure out a way to vent out his frustration. So he just used Stephen A. Smith as a canvas for his frustration. But his issue is not with Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith didn't say anything that nobody else ain't saying. Nothing Stephen A. Smith has said that I haven't said right here. But see, he doesn't know me. And let's just leave it at that. So when players left school early back in the days, okay, let's talk about this. Actually, let me back up. I already told you, LeBron James is using his son. That's my issue with LeBron in this whole situation. If I did talk to LeBron, and he said, Dre, what do you think about the situation with my son and Bronny being in the NBA? I say, it appears, LeBron, that you have used your son to achieve your goal. And that's a problem. If you're asking me man to man, father to father, what I think about it is that you are messing up your son's path to serve yourself. And you need to check yourself on that. That's what I would tell him. Because here's the question I would ask him. Was it Bronny's dream to be in the NBA as quickly as possible, or was it your dream to have him in the NBA so he could stand next to you? That's the question I asked LeBron James. So what do y'all think? Do you think it was Bronny or you think it was dad? Was it son or dad? Put son or dad in the chat. Which one do you think was the goal? Was Bronny being in the NBA this year, was that the son's goal or was that the dad's goal? To me, it appears it was the dad's goal. And because the dad is the dad, he has leverage, he has pull. I haven't even heard LeBron James' son talk. I don't even know have you even heard Bronny James talk? I don't even know what his voice sounds like. Only time he's being talked about is his dad talking about him. I never heard the kid speak. I think this was LeBron's goal. And hey, maybe his son does love basketball. Maybe his son, obviously he's grown up watching his dad play basketball. So it's natural that, and there are plenty of dads, they play basketball all the time. And you see their sons at the games and their sons grow up to want to play basketball. There's pictures of Stephen Curry and his brother Seth Curry at the games hanging with players when his dad was playing in the NBA. If your dad plays basketball and you're old enough to understand what he's doing, you are naturally going to gravitate towards basketball. Ron been playing basketball for as long as his son's been alive. Both of his sons are basketball players. That's a natural progression. However, was it the son's goal? I just need to get to the NBA as quickly as possible. For what? Why does LeBron's son need to be in the NBA right now? Why can't he do 4 years of college? What's the difference? Why can't he do 2 years? Why can't he do 3? Why did Bronny James need to come to the NBA? For those of you who don't know the background of leaving early, because it's so common now that people don't even think about it, but most of you understand that college is generally designed to be 4 years, right? But basketball players and football players as well, they will leave school early. In basketball, you can leave whenever you want. In college, technically you have to be 3 years removed because of the physicality. In football, you technically had to be 3 years removed because of the physicality of football. So football players can't leave after 1 year. They got to do 3. But in basketball, you could do 1, 2, 3 and leave. What it used to be back in the 90s and even before that. In the 90s is when it started to become a thing, leaving early. But before that, players generally didn't often leave that early. Michael Jordan did 3 years. Charles Barkley, 3 years. Patrick Ewing, 4 years. So back in the days, players would, Tim Duncan even, 4 years. It wasn't a common thing for players to forego collegiate playing to go straight to the NBA. And what it was called was hardship. It was called financial hardship. In other words, if a player was going to leave college and forego their remaining eligibility to enter the NBA draft, they had to give a reason. And the reason was financial hardship, i.e., my family's broke, we need the money, so I'm going to leave college so I can go into a professional career, which happens to be basketball, and make some money to take care of myself and to take care of my family. And it was generally accepted, okay, Allen Iverson, you're from the hood, you're from the ghetto, your family can't pay bills, you're playing in college, you're going to leave so you can go to the NBA and make some money and take care of your family. Cool. What was Bronny James's hardship? You don't have one. Now, to be clear, it did kind of get relaxed a little bit because Kobe Bryant's family he didn't come from some broke family. Dwight Howard didn't come from some broke family, but they skipped college altogether just because they had the talent. And I am with this argument that, listen, if somebody can leave high school and go get a professional job doing anything else, you leave high school and go join the military and lay your life on the line for this country. What's so bad about somebody deciding to leave high school and go get a job playing basketball? You can leave high school and go play tennis. You can leave high school and go be a baseball player. Why can't you leave high school and be an NBA player? Nothing wrong with it. And people say there are racial undertones to that. I am open to hearing that conversation. I'm open to that. And I believe there are. I don't want to dive into that here today, but that's 100%. That is a solid argument. Why do people have an issue with a basketball player who are mostly black guys from the hood, or at least it used to be? Nowadays, you got a bunch of black kids coming from the suburbs, but that's a whole other conversation. Mostly black guys coming from the hood who want to go make a living playing basketball. Why is that an issue? When at the same time, if somebody wants to go play tennis, baseball, or join the military where they're risking their lives, that's okay. That is a serious conversation. But again, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. The point being, it was generally understood that if a player left school early, it was for hardship because you needed to solve a problem, a serious life problem that you could not solve while remaining in college. Bronny James does not have that issue. From all reports, LeBron James is doing pretty good financially. Now, can we agree to that? I think LeBron James is doing all right. And I think he makes enough money to take care of Bronny James financially. I don't think Bronny James needed the money. And I don't think that's why he went to the NBA. So why did he go? Again, why did he go? Because not like his performance said you need to go to the NBA. Who's the player who who played college basketball for 1 year and just dominated? Like the kid at Duke right now, Cooper Flagg. All right, he's doing his thing. He's doing really well. He's playing so well. It's predicted that if he goes to the draft this year, he'll probably be the #1 pick, right? Because he's playing so well that people are like, man, you have no reason to stay in college. Just go to the NBA. The NBA is waiting for you. You're doing all this to make it to the pros, right? You might as well go there as quickly as possible. If you're playing so well that people are like, wow. Kobe Bryant, when he was in high school, he was playing so well that people said, you know what, this kid might be able to skip college because he's so damn good. Dwight Howard, when he skipped, this kid might be able to skip college. LeBron James, he was so good in high school, people are like, he might as well just go straight to the NBA. What's the purpose of college? He just go straight to the NBA. He's just so good. Did anybody say that about Bronny James when he was in high school or his freshman year of college? The answer is hell no. Why? Because Bronny James just ain't that good. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. The kid is just not that good. He's not as talented as his dad. Nobody is. And I don't know anything about Bronny James. Again, I've never even heard the kid talk. I hope he's not chasing the ghost of his father. I think he probably has realized that he can't chase that ghost. He's like, how tall is Bronny James? Like 6'2"? LeBron's like 6'8" and a genetic freak in every way. Bronny James is a pretty normal 6'2" kid. I've been around a lot of people around 6'2" who are athletic and play basketball. There's nothing special about him. Athletically, he doesn't kind of jump off the page that much as far as I'm concerned. There's 100 players in the NBA right now with the same athletic profile as Bronny James. There's nothing exceptional about him athletically on the pro basketball level scale. Now, compared to the average human, yes, he's a great athlete. But compared to most basketball players, 6'2", a little bit fast, twitchy, athletic, can jump, can dunk. There's 100 guys in the NBA that can do all those things. There's nothing different about Bronny James. Now, when LeBron James came into the NBA, there was nobody who fit his profile. And if there were, maybe 4 or 5 guys, but they didn't have the skills. The genetic profile is a bunch of guys that had similar 6'8", can jump high, etc. But all the stuff he had, the abilities with the ball, LeBron James was a freak. He was an alien in basketball. Was and still is. 40 years old, doing what he's doing. He's still an alien. Bronny James is not an alien. Bronny James is an average professional level, at least genetically average basketball player. There's nothing special about this kid. And I'm not saying that to knock him. I'm saying that as the guys who leave early, usually there's something that they're doing and some abilities that they have that you're looking at them like, oh my God, like there's nothing like this. This guy has to go to the NBA because we don't see this anywhere else. You saw that with Kobe Bryant. You saw it with Dwight Howard. You saw it with LeBron James. You saw it with Allen Iverson. You saw it with Wembanyama, the guy in San Antonio coming from France. You see it with these players that they are doing things that there's players in the NBA can't do it, and this guy's only in high school. This guy's only in college. Bronny James does not have anything that fits that description. So there's no reason why he should have left college to try to make it to the NBA. This is exactly what Shaquille O'Neal was telling his son. Like, dude, you ain't got it. Not to say you can't get it, but you don't have it. It's the same thing that I would say. I don't know what the conversation was with Dwayne Wade and his son. Dwayne Wade's son is not very talented. Why did he not go play college basketball for 4 years? It was ridiculous. That kid should be in college right now playing college basketball, getting better, and maybe he can develop into a professional level player. Why are you skipping the steps? I don't understand this whole thing with skipping steps and how you have a father. Dwayne Wade went to college for 3 years, and Dwayne Wade is one of the greatest players of all time. Not in the top 10, but Dwayne Wade is in what? Let's say he's in the top 30 players of all time. He went to college for 3 years. But your son, who has half of your talent, you're going to encourage him. You're going to tell him, hey, why don't you just skip college altogether and just try to make it pro? Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand this. And this is where I'm holding fathers accountable. And Dwayne Wade is one of my favorite players. I tried to take things from Dwayne Wade's game and use them in my game when I was playing. We are roughly the same age. I don't know what the conversation was. Again, so I can't say I know, but I'm just wondering. You did 3 years in college, and you are way more talented than your son. How could you possibly sit there and be okay with him skipping college when he don't even have half of your talent? It just doesn't make any sense to me. At least Shaquille O'Neal told his son, yo, you ain't got it, stay in school, and his son didn't want to listen. Fine, you don't want to listen, do what you want to do. And a lot of parents deal with that when they have young men who are kind of stubborn and they want to do things their way, and you got to kind of let them do their thing their way. I hear parents say this all the time. My son, he's 19, somewhere between 19 and 25, and he becomes kind of stubborn, and he don't want to listen to dad anymore, and he goes and needs to mess up on his own. I got to let him mess up until he realizes that I knew what I was talking about. I hear dads say that all the time about their sons when they're around that age bracket. So maybe this is the case with Dwayne Wade's son, but something tells me that wasn't the case. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me not speculate. I don't know. I don't know that conversation, but it just doesn't add up to me. It just doesn't add up. LeBron James, it appears to me, and I'm saying all that to say this, it appears with LeBron James, this was much more his idea. And that's the issue I got with it. This was his idea. LeBron James' dream was not to have his son playing in the damn G League. Do y'all know what life is like in the G League? Any of you know? There used to be a TV show. I forgot what the name of it was. It was a TV show about what used to be called the D League, Developmental League. Now it's called the G League because it's sponsored by Gatorade. So they just changed the name. It's the same league. Do y'all know what life is like in the G League? Let me tell you. First of all, I'm not going to put people's business in the street, but you can Google the salaries in the G League. That's number one. You can Google how much money players make in the G League because there's a cap on how much money you can make when you play in the G League. So y'all can do that on your own time. Secondly, when I played basketball professionally, I did not play in the G League. I played mostly overseas. But right after I finished playing the G League, the NBA/G League hired me to come speak to a bunch of teams in the G League. So I spoke to damn near every team in the G League. And the way they would do it is you would go to one city where two teams were about to have a game, and they would bring all the players from both teams together into a hotel conference room, and then you would speak to two teams at the same time. So if it's 20 teams in the G League, I did 10 different dates, 10 different cities, and each time I was talking to two teams. So that way I touched every team in the G League. That's what I did a few years ago. So when I did that, here's the thing. They had me flying on the same planes that the players were flying on. By the way, these are commercial flights. This is not a private flight. So in other words, I was flying into Erie, Pennsylvania, because that's where one of the teams was. I don't think they're in Erie anymore. I think they moved to Atlanta. So I was flying into Erie, Pennsylvania on this little tiny plane from Philly to Erie, PA. And a bunch of the players who were on one of the G League teams who was traveling to Erie, PA, they would be on the same plane that I was on. Now, they didn't know who I was. I recognized them because you see a bunch of 6'8" dudes walking through the airport, you're going to recognize them. They didn't know me. And they didn't recognize me because I hadn't spoken yet. But I'm on the same plane as them, so I know the planes they're flying on. I know the way that they are trying to get seats. And mind you, think about it, you got a whole team of 6'8". It's guys who are, let's say, 6'5" and up. It ain't but so many seats in first class, and the team ain't paying for first class flights. So you got a bunch of dudes 6'8", 6'9" sitting in coach and little planes. These are small planes. Any of you ever flown like inside of a state from to a small town? Those planes are little, and these guys are sitting on these planes. This is part of life in the G League. And mind you, this is what they do all year. These are commercial flights. Now, the WNBA was complaining about having to fly commercial as if it's some type of hardship for them. These dudes in the G League fly like that all the time. You never hear them complaining, do you? Anyway, different conversation. And then I was staying in the same hotels as the teams because we stay at a hotel, and then they would have all the players come to the hotel or to the conference room in the hotel. Everybody's already in the hotel. Then we would just have a meeting at 6 o'clock. I'd talk, somebody else talks, then we all leave. They're not staying at, this is not the Ritz-Carlton. Okay, this is not even the Intercontinental. These are Holiday Inn Expresses. And mind you, the G League, for those of you who don't know how the G League works, most of the time these teams are in towns that are not big cities. They may be affiliated with a big city, like the LA Lakers G League team is affiliated with a big city, but the team will be located a little bit outside of the city. And they'll be staying in a hotel that's outside of the city. Any of you ever been to a big city area, but then you stay in a hotel that was outside of the city? Ain't no 5-star hotels outside of the city. The 5-star hotels are all in the main area of the city. You want to stay at the Ritz-Carlton in LA, you're going to be in LA. You step outside of LA, ain't no Ritz-Carlton. You got a bunch of 3-star hotels. And this is where these guys are staying. And mind you, they're staying 2 to a room. You only get your own room. I'm painting this picture to help you all understand what life is like playing in the G League. This is what life is in the G League. And here's the crazy thing with Bronny James that makes it even more, as far as I'm concerned, ridiculous. Bronny James the way they set it up is that he doesn't even, I don't know if he's traveling or not with the G League, but when the Lakers have a home game, Bronny James suits up and sits on the bench for the Lakers home games, even though he never plays. He just gets to sit on the bench anytime the Lakers have a home game, and therefore he gets to skip whatever game his G League team may have if they're traveling. And with the G League team, I believe the situation is that he's only playing home games. Can somebody fact check me on that? I believe that's the situation. That when it comes to the G League, he only plays in the home games, and then he's with the Lakers when they have home games. I remember it being explained at the beginning of the season, but it was something like that. That he doesn't play in all the games in the G League, even though he's on the G League roster. He plays in some of them, but if the Lakers have a game at home, he plays, quote unquote, sits on the bench with the Lakers. Now, what is that? If that's not preferential treatment, I don't know what is. This guy's getting preferential treatment from the Lakers, or the organization, because the Lakers control the G League team, so they're all one big organization. He's getting preferential treatment just because of who his dad is, which is ridiculous. And I'm saying that from the outside looking in. It's ridiculous on several levels. Number one is that you are treating your son this way when your son has only earned his, if you want to say he's earned anything, maybe he's earned the right to play in the G League. Cool. He's doing well in the G League. Cool. Let him keep doing well in the G League. The problem is, why are you even letting him suit up for Lakers games when we know he's not going to play? We know he cannot play. What's the point? Just so your dad can say that he had his son on the roster for an entire season? What's the basketball development point of Bronny James being on the Lakers roster for any reason, for any games this season? What is the point? I'm interested to see what they do when the playoffs come. Because in the playoffs, somebody might end up needing to get in the game if somebody gets injured. I'm wondering if Bronny James is going to be on the playoff roster for the Lakers, because you have to set your playoff roster. Before the playoffs start, every team who's going to be in the playoff has to say, this is our roster, and you can't add anybody to the roster. So either you're on it or you're off it. The reason why Bronny James is not on the active roster for the Lakers most nights is because he's not going to play and he can't help the team win. So in the playoffs, when the games are much higher stakes, are they going to have him on the roster or not? Because if he's not on the roster, he's got to be at the game in street clothes, sitting on the sideline watching, clapping for his dad from the seats where you got to have a ticket. Are they going to put him on the roster and risk that he might need to get in the game in the playoffs? I'm interested to find out what they're going to do with that. Point is, they made an exception to cater to this guy. It's supposed to be catering to LeBron. Really, it's not catering to him. They're catering to LeBron and using his son as the canvas for it. And as I said already, life in the G League ain't luxurious. Okay, trust me, it ain't luxurious. And the money ain't luxurious either. Again, Bronny didn't need the money. His family got money. His dad makes more money for one game than an entire G League roster makes for damn near the whole season. Almost. Actually, that might actually be true. We got to do the math, but it might be true. So his life would have been much better had he been on a college campus. That's the point that I made earlier. Moving on. Some were saying, well, his son's doing well in the G League. Dre, you're just hating. This is what some people say. Dre, you're just hating on Bronny James. You're just hating on LeBron James. You are just... I think somebody alluded to this in one of my comments on Instagram the other day. Well, dudes be getting mad. This is what this guy was saying. Dudes be getting mad because their success is not as good as LeBron James' success or Bronny James' success. So they're just hating and something like that. He was talking like a female, and I said that directly to him, at least in the comments. And they say, well, he's doing well in the G League. He's averaging 20 points in the G League. Congratulations to Bronny James for doing well in the G League. Let me ask you all a question. Let me give you an analogy. Let's say I steal $1 million from you in cash. I embezzle $1 million out of your account. Then I take that $1 million and I donate it to cancer research. And then my $1 million donation to cancer research helps cure cancer. All right, let's say that happens. So I stole the money from you, donated it to a charity, and with that donation, they were able to cure cancer and do a great thing for the world. Now, let me ask you a question. Does that curing of cancer erase the fact that I stole $1 million from you? Do I still owe you the $1 million? Can you still hold me accountable for stealing money from you? And of course, the answer is it does not erase the fact that I stole the money. I still owe you the money. And yes, you can still hold me accountable because I stole money from you. The point being, just because something good happened in the end, if you want to call this good, him playing well in the G League, that doesn't change the frame of where this whole thing started. This whole thing started with, I'm going to get my son into the NBA to play with me. His son can't play. That's why he's in the G League. And the fact that he's doing well in the G League, if he wins the G League MVP and they win the G League championship, congratulations, I suppose, to Bronny James. But is that the reason why his dad pulled him out of college and got him to enter the NBA draft? So he could be the man in the G League? No. He pulled him out of college so he could play with him on the Lakers, but he can't play on the Lakers. That's the fault here. And what a lot of LeBron fans, we'll just be generous and call them that, are trying to say is, well, he's doing well in the G League. Give him time to develop. Mofo, time to develop is what you do in college. That's the reason why there's college basketball and there's pro basketball. You have to develop in college so that you are good enough to play at the pro level. The only reason Bronny's even getting a chance in the G League is because he was drafted to the Lakers. The Lakers realized he couldn't play, and they said, we got to put him on the G League team. That's the only reason he's even on the roster, is because they needed to pick him for the Lakers. He couldn't play, and now they had to put him in the G League. He backed into the G League. That wasn't the goal. That wasn't supposed to be the plan. The plan was NBA, not the G League. G League was not part of the plan at all when LeBron said, I want my son on the roster with me in the NBA. He didn't say nothing about the G League. Further, in my line of work, to go further when it comes to Bronny and LeBron, I have dealt with and come across many people in the athletic/entertainment space who were forced into that space by an overbearing parent who was living out their dream, mom or dad, living out their dream through son or daughter. I've come across many people who fit this description. I got their emails. I get their DMs. I've had conversations with them. I'm not saying this is necessarily the case with LeBron James and Bronny James, but we can't rule it out. Again, how do we know Bronny James really, that his thing is really basketball? Is it? How do we know? How do we know? It appears that dad, actually, this is not a theory. It's clear and obvious, and everyone would agree. Dad takes up a lot of air, a lot of oxygen in the room. When LeBron James walks into a room, everybody's looking at LeBron James. If he walks into any room, everybody's noticing him. All right, he has that type of position just in life, period. He has that type of stature. Now, if you're the son growing up in the shadow of dad, I would guess my relationship with my dad is not like that. My dad does not have that kind of cachet that LeBron James has. I would guess that a young man eventually wants to step out of his dad's shadow and become his own man and become his own person. Y'all saw this with, remember LeVar Ball a few years ago? And he had the 3 boys, and he's saying we're going to get them on the Lakers as quickly as possible. 2 of his boys are in the NBA now, and one of them is a rapper, I suppose. But there was a scene, I remember they had this reality show. I didn't watch the show, but I saw a clip where the oldest son, Lonzo Ball, is clearly, it looks like he's trying to get out of his dad's shadow. And his dad is overbearing. His dad's like, well, everybody's going to wear, remember the sneakers LeVar Ball had, the big baller brand sneakers? So, and those sneakers were like, people ordered the sneakers and then they weren't getting the sneakers, and then players are, the boys were playing in the sneakers and the sneakers are falling apart, and Lonzo was playing in those big baller brand sneakers and he didn't like the sneakers. So he would wear sneakers that were not the family brand. And there was a clip from the reality show that they had that was all about LeVar Ball. It wasn't about the boys, it was about LeVar Ball. And that guy's he's a ham for the camera. That's who he is. Doesn't make him a bad guy, but he wanted attention. He calls for it. And he was having a little back and forth with his son, his oldest son, about wearing the brand. This is our company brand. You're going to represent the company brand. Lonzo clearly didn't want to do it. The problem is when you got a dad like LeVar Ball, you don't have that much of a voice. You can't tell your dad that you disagree with him, and your dad's going to sit there and let you disagree. He was treating him like a boy when he was clearly a man. At this time, Lonzo was already in the NBA. He's in the NBA based on his performance, unlike Bronny James. He had been drafted very highly. He hadn't done so great yet, but he's turned into a solid NBA player. And his dad was like telling him, we going to do what I'm saying that we going to do. This is what his dad's saying to him. This is when he's like 21 years old. And I remember Lonzo was kind of like letting his dad talk. It seemed like this is something that's been happening his entire life. When his dad gets on one of those kicks, you just got to be quiet and nothing else you can say. And LeVar was getting more verbally aggressive with his son as the conversation went on. I'm bringing all that up to say this, that when you have a father who's that overbearing and just is his way or no way, eventually as a man, you're going to want to get out from under that shadow. And you don't hear LeVar Ball saying too much these days. He's been generally pretty quiet. After the sneaker line didn't go too well and the brand itself didn't go too well and they got money embezzled from them, and he remember he had that little basketball league, and I don't know what's happening with that. He's generally quieted down. And the last I heard, he had an amputation on his foot or his leg or something like that. He's generally gotten a little bit more quiet. The reason why is because, well, first of all the things he was boasting about and doing, I mean, aside from his sons making it to the NBA, didn't really materialize the way that maybe he thought they would. And secondly, because I would guess his 3 sons, he's finally come to the realization. I don't think they told him. I think he had to tell himself, you need to fall back and let your boys become men. You can't keep daddying a boy when he starts to become a man. And right now, LeBron James is daddying his son. His son is looked at as a boy. It's just in the general public. Does Bronny James seem like a man to you? To me, he's being treated like a boy because LeBron put him in this position. He's a boy. I haven't even heard the kid speak. Every time there's a conversation about Bronny James, LeBron's doing all the talking. The problem with this is there's nothing wrong with a dad being a dad. Now, if you're a father, you want to defend your son and speak up for your son, et cetera, fine if your son is 12 years old. Fine if your son is still living under your umbrella and you are in control of him, or not in control, but you are responsible for him. If that's what you're doing as a dad, of course, you should do that. My son's 2 years old. Yes, I am going to speak for him, defend him, advocate for him, et cetera, et cetera. My son's 2. Your son is 18, 19. And most importantly, LeBron, you brought your son into a man's space. The NBA is not a space for boys. NBA is a space for men. As soon as you bring your son into a man's space, you can't keep dealing with him and defending him as if he's a boy. He's not a boy anymore. As soon as he got to the NBA, he was no longer a boy. He could be 17. He could be 19. He could be 30. As soon as you step into the NBA, you are stepping into a professional job. And professional jobs are not for children. Professional jobs are for men and women, grown adults. As soon as you said, you got to draft my son if you want me, and he actually got picked, he became a man, whether he wanted to be or not. Therefore, you, Dad, LeBron, you can't keep defending, quote unquote, your son, and what you're really defending is your ego every time somebody talks about your son. Or they talk about you as a father, because you put both of those on the front line. You put both of those on the front page of the newspaper. Now we're talking about it. You can't get offended by that. You made this a story, sir. Nobody went looking for your son. You said, look at my son. Okay, well, now we're looking at him. And everybody's looking at him. People are going to talk about him. And when people talk about you, it ain't got to be what you want them to say. LeBron should know this very well. He's been famous for 30 years. He should know this pretty well. But I understand as a father that maybe your child is a soft spot for you. I get it. I understand. But he also needs to understand what I just explained. As soon as you say your son is going to play in the NBA, he becomes a man. Whether he's a man or not, he's a man now. He gets talked about like a man. Yo, that kid can't play. Yo, he's not good. And LeBron is taking this personally himself. And the reason he's taking it personally is because the only reason we are even looking at this kid is because of you. And that's it. He has to own that. And LeBron has to own that. And just because as a father, if your kids become quote unquote successful in the line of work that you have pushed them into, is that okay if your kid never wanted to do it? And I tell you, I've heard from many, many parents and kids over the years. I remember I was speaking at a conference years ago, and a man got up. This is Q&A. So I gave a talk called Work on Your Game, how to apply the pro athlete mindset to business and life. And I used some anecdotes from my background as an athlete and how they apply to the business world. This is at a business conference. And this guy, I believe he was maybe East Asian. He stood up and said, Dre, you played basketball, professionally. How do I get my son? My son is 15 years old, Dre. How do I get my son to really want to make it as an athlete? Because I have been trying to push him, but he seems to be resisting. How do I get my son to make it as an athlete? That was his question. And he asked this question in front of like 500 people. And I told him, maybe your son doesn't want to be an athlete. And that's a hard pill for him to swallow. And many parents have to swallow that pill. That whatever you think your son or daughter might be great at is not as relevant as what they think they might be great at. It's not saying that you can't kind of guide them in a certain direction and that maybe they'll stick to it, but maybe they won't. And at some point, you got to let your child be an adult when they decide they don't want to do a thing. Again, you can bring them to soccer practice and bring them to basketball. I'm going to introduce my son to basketball. I'm going to introduce him to business. I'm going to introduce him to entrepreneurship. But ultimately, as he becomes a man, years down the line, he has to make his own choice as to where he wants to go. My job is only to show him what he can do and best guide him as I can in whatever spaces he steps into. But I can't determine for him what his career is going to be. I've had young ladies reach out to me. They are pageant girls. I know girls who do these beauty pageants and stuff like that, talent shows and stuff. I've had young ladies reach out to me and say, I have an overbearing mother who is all about getting me in these pageants. I hate doing these pageants, but I don't know how to tell my mom this. I'm only 16, Dre. What do I do? I got these emails. Athletes in other sports, same things. My dad wants me to play baseball. My dad wants me to play basketball. And they don't really want to play, but who are you to talk to? Who are you to say something to your dad? Especially dads who are very alpha type of guys. like a LeBron James. And LeBron James not as bad as LeVar Ball. From what I've seen LeVar Ball talking to his sons on that reality show is like, you can't talk in that house. I think LeBron's kids can talk a little bit more than LeVar Ball's kids could talk. But again, when you have that type of presence to where you take all the air out of the room, does your son have the space to tell you he doesn't want to do what you want him to do to make you look good? That's a question only LeBron can answer. And he could probably only answer that question in a therapist chair. But I got to put it out. I got to put it all on the table. LeVar Ball with that big baller brand. Think about that. Looking back now, looking at it now that is quiet and nobody's wearing the sneakers anymore. Let me ask you all a question. Was big baller brand LeVar Ball's dream or was it his kid's dream? All you know the answer to that now. It's easy now. It was real exciting when his sons were getting drafted to the NBA and getting their chances, and he was toting his sneakers, and everybody's talking about LeVar Ball. He's getting invited on ESPN and doing interviews, and he's the man, right? What's the conversation around big baller brand now? It's obvious that was his thing. That wasn't his son's thing. Lonzo Ball ain't want nothing to do with big baller brand. He didn't want to wear them sneakers. He never wanted to wear the sneakers. But, again, what's he going to say to his dad? Y'all hear LeVar Ball talk? If you grew up in that house as a boy, what are you going to say to that man? What you gonna say to him? You can't say anything to a dad like that. And some of you who are listening to this, some of you have had fathers that are like this. My dad was not like this, but I understand there are fathers who are like this. They are loud, they are big, they are imposing. They take all the air out of the room when they walk into the house, and whatever they say pretty much goes. And if you disagree, you better disagree quietly. You can't disagree out loud with them in their house. At what point do they get out of the way so that you can actually be an adult? At some point, what happens is, in my experience, any of you who had this experience, please tell me. Any of you who had this experience. And some of you males who are listening to this, you might be the guy I'm describing. And you got to check yourself. I'm not saying this is LeBron. I'm just putting it out there as a theory. And if you're a father, you got to check yourself on this. You got to check yourself because nobody's able to check you in your own house. Your wife can't check you. Your kids can't check you. Who's going to check you? You got to check yourself. And the thing is, at some point in my experience, from what I've heard from many people telling me these experiences, that eventually it comes to a head where you got to have a confrontational conversation with your parents, because sometimes it might be your mom. Women, you can be guilty of this too, but most of the time I see it as men. Is you got to have a conversation with a parent or parents and let them know, hey, I'm not a child anymore. I'm an adult, and you kind of need to fall back on telling me what to do. Tell me what I should, and could, or can, or can't do, and kind of meddling in my business. I'm an adult now. You need to fall back. And often, in my experience, and this is experience I have had with my parents, often that has to be a confrontational conversation for them to get the fucking point. Because if you try to say it to them nicely, they don't get it. And that happens. It happens when children become adults. Is that sometimes the parent has to get the point in a stronger way. Hopefully, for myself, being that I'm articulating this right now, that won't have to happen with my children. But every parent has to, at some point, get the hell out the way. And getting out the way means, the biggest part about getting out the way means your child, who's now an adult, may have to fall and fail, and you got to sit there and watch it happen. And you can't jump in. You can't jump out the stands and help your kid. They're getting beat up in a boxing match. You got to sit there and watch them get beat up. You got to let it happen. And that's hard for a lot of parents to do. I understand why it's hard for a lot of parents to do. Doesn't mean that it's not real. That's a real thing. And again, I'm not even saying this is what LeBron is doing. But let's move on. A couple more points and I'll take questions. And people talk about, I didn't go deep into this, but other draft picks in the NBA are doing better than, Bronny's doing better than other people who got drafted to the NBA. It's completely irrelevant because, again, he wouldn't have got drafted in the first place. Getting your son a job. We talked about that already. In the sports world, you can't really get your son a job. Again, you got to be able to play. If you can't play, you can't get a job. Now, you can get a job coaching. You can get a job in management. But on the court, on the field, no. If you can't play, you ain't getting in. I already talked about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan tried to get his son, and he got his son in the high school all-star game. His son got embarrassed. I think, hopefully, Michael Jordan got the point. His son went to play college basketball. At some point, Michael Jordan probably got the point. All right, my son probably ain't going to make it as a basketball player. He fell back and let his son be who he wanted to be. Was damn sure wasn't going to be a basketball player. I'm not even saying Michael Jordan forced his sons to play basketball. I think they were inclined to it because that's what dad did. Of course I'm going to try to play basketball. That's what my dad does. Let me play basketball. A young man's usually going to follow after what he sees his dad doing. At least he may try. But at some point, he may realize, okay, this ain't me. And the dad has to be able to be hands-off enough to let him go somewhere else if he don't want to do it. And that's all right. My dad didn't play any basketball. When I played basketball, he didn't try to stop me from playing. That's what a parent should do. So Shaquille O'Neal, already explained. Dwayne Wade, already explained. I think overall the situation hasn't gone for LeBron the way he thought it was going to go. He's not getting ultimate universal praise the way he thought he would. And again, he's taking his frustration out on Stephen A. Smith, but it ain't really about Stephen A. Smith. All these other guys could have tried to force their sons into the NBA, chose not to, or simply could not because their sons weren't good enough. LeBron's the only one who was able to force it. Bronny James, as I already said many times already, he was not forced to earn his position. His dad got him in. And that stain is going to be on his name forever. This is the biggest thing with Bronny James. And any of you who's ever been in this type of environment understands this. Is that when your dad gets you into a position and everybody believes your dad got you into the position, whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant because everybody believes it. Bronny James is never going to get the full respect for his own game. Well, let me not say never. Right now, he's not going to get the full respect for his own game. Most players in the NBA, I would bet, if you asked them off camera, and it wasn't being recorded, do you respect Bronny James as a basketball player? Most of them would probably say no. As a former player myself, I don't respect Bronny James as an NBA player. I respect him as a human being. I don't respect him as an NBA player because I know he didn't earn his way into the NBA, and everybody knows it. So he's not going to be respected. Even in the locker room for the Lakers right now, when the Lakers have a home game and Bronny's in their locker room getting dressed and putting his uniform on to sit on the bench all game, do the other players in that locker room really respect Bronny James? The answer is hell no, they don't respect him because he didn't earn it. But you can't disrespect him in front of the best player on the team. That's LeBron's team. The Lakers are LeBron's team, so you can't disrespect his son in front of him. But if Bronny wasn't on the Lakers and he had gotten into the NBA because LeBron James said, hey, somebody better draft my son, and he got picked for it, he was on the Houston Rockets, would he be respected? No, he wouldn't be respected because he didn't earn his position. And that's a problem because now he got to live with that. When LeBron James not in the NBA anymore, who knows how long he's going to play? Let's say he plays another 5 years in the NBA. Another interesting thing, LeBron was talking about getting my son to the league as if he was about to retire. LeBron James still an all-star. Maybe he'll play 4 or 5 more years. He could have let his son play 4 years and still played with him. Different conversation for a different day. But when LeBron is no longer in the league and Bronny is in some locker room in the NBA and he's having an argument with one of his teammates about something that happened in practice, or Bronny missed an assignment, or he missed the open jump shot, or something happened, or he's playing for whatever team and they're playing against the Dallas Mavericks and he starts trash talking with a player on another team, what do you think they all going to say to him? They're all going to use the same insult to Bronny James the entire time he's in the NBA as soon as his dad ain't there anymore. They can't say it to him now because his dad's around. As soon as LeBron ain't in the NBA anymore, what's everybody going to say to Bronny? They're going to say, shut the hell up, you bum. You didn't earn your way into the NBA. You're only in the league because your dad got you here. Your dad ain't here to protect you anymore. Shut the fuck up because you can't play. That's exactly what they're going to say to him. There's a bunch of players in the NBA right now thinking that, but they won't say it because LeBron has a lot of pull in the NBA. There's a bunch of players in the NBA thinking it right now. Now, how do I know this? I know this because I used to play. And I saw a dude who was on the team because his dad got him on the team and he ain't that good. I'm like, this punk, he can't even play. He didn't earn a spot on the roster. He's only on the roster because his dad's here. And if his dad wasn't around, you wouldn't even be playing. Nobody has respect for that guy. And the reason why this is a problem is because Bronny did not ask for this. At least it doesn't seem like it. He didn't ask for this, but he has to live with it. He got to live the rest of his basketball career with that stain on his name that the only reason you're in the league is because of your dad. Even if he ends up being good. The only reason you got in because of your dad. You didn't earn your way in. You're a nepotism DEI basketball player. That's what I call him. I call Bronny James a DEI NBA player. First one in history. So LeBron, you made history. You created a DEI NBA player. Because he didn't earn it. Everybody knows he didn't earn it. That's not even a conversation that needs to be had anymore. And if you want to treat your kid like a man, you got to let him speak for himself. If you want to treat him like a kid, then you're speaking for him. But you can't be in the NBA being treated like a kid. Again, this is another reason why Bronny's not going to be respected. His dad's talking for him. Now, as far as that pulling up thing, a couple more points. Remember that whole pulling up thing? The pulling up thing. LeBron pulling up on Stephen A. Smith. Skip Bayless has been trashing LeBron James for how long? How long Skip Bayless been trashing LeBron James? Somebody give me a number of years. How many years has Skip Bayless been trashing LeBron James? And I generally have not agreed with Skip Bayless's approach. I think we all can agree. Any of you know who Skip Bayless is. He's this older white guy who was a journalist and then got on TV debating with Stephen A. Smith. It's been closer to 20. Amber said 10. It's been longer than that. Tillman said 20. It's about in between, about 15. maybe closer to 20 actually. Skip Bayless has been bashing LeBron James for about 2 decades. And what I didn't like about Skip's approach is not that you can't criticize LeBron. It's just that no matter what LeBron did, Skip would just come up with some creative way to not give LeBron credit, no matter what he did. Whatever team LeBron's on wins the championship, he finds a way to say, well, LeBron James ain't that good. He didn't do this thing. He didn't do that. This other guy had to do it. Dwayne Wade had to make the big shot. No matter what LeBron did, Skip Bayless never said, man, that was just a great game by LeBron. I can only praise him. He never did that. Every single day, he would come up with a new angle to bash LeBron James. I'm bringing all that up to say this. How many times did LeBron pull up on Skip Bayless? It's been 20 years. How many times did LeBron pull up on Skip Bayless? And Skip Bayless been trashing LeBron harder and more ridiculously and longer than Stephen A. Smith. And for ridiculous reasons. Stephen A. Smith has a legitimate reason to criticize LeBron. His criticism is legitimate. I just spent the last hour and a half telling you why I agree with it, generally. Skip Bayless has been criticizing LeBron completely. There is no credibility to a lot of the criticism Skip Bayless used to give to LeBron. He just come up with anything to just attack LeBron James. Anything and everything. How many times did LeBron pull up on him? Because, see, here's the issue, folks. If we want to talk man rules and we want to talk pulling up, what y'all like to call pulling up, if you're going to pull up on one person because they got out of line, you got to pull up on everybody. You can't pick and choose who you're going to pull up on. This is the issue. I got an episode on my podcast I call it a masterclass. It'll be out in a couple weeks where I talked about this specifically to men, that it's better to be smart than to be tough. The problem with being tough is that you got to be tough all the time. You can't pick and choose when to get tough. LeBron got tough with Stephen A. Smith, at least according to what many LeBron fans like to say. He got tough because he pulled up, he stepped to him, et cetera, et cetera. I see a lot of men saying this, a lot of males saying this, when they're the same guys who you ain't never stepped to nobody ever in your life, but you're cheerleading LeBron doing it. Have you ever done that to anybody? So why are you cheerleading it? Because if somebody did that to you, what would you do? So the whole thing about him stepping to somebody is you got to step to everybody who's talking about you. Don't just pick and choose. Don't pick the guy in the suit who's 10, 15 years older than you, who you know he's not physically going to fight you. You're 6'8", he's like 6'1". All right, he's not. What is he going to do to you? So that's the guy you got tough with? I thought it was that if you're a big guy and you step to somebody who's smaller than you, you were looked at as the bully. Why is LeBron being applauded for stepping to 6'1", 160-pound, 55-year-old man, Stephen A. Smith, in a suit? While you 6'8", 260, you play professional basketball, you all in a sweat because you're in the middle of a basketball game. Now that's tough? I thought it was the other way around. I thought the 6'1" guy stepped to the 6'8" guy, that was tough. Now the 6'8" guy steps to a 6'1" guy who's 15 years older than him and is giving up 100 pounds. Now he's tough? When did that become a thing? Somebody let me know. When did that become a thing? Maybe I'm out of touch with the culture. When did that become a thing? Somebody let me know. Maybe I ain't been paying attention enough. Maybe I'm not. Maybe my ear is not to the streets the way that it used to be. But when did it become tough that you're 6'8", 260, you're stepping to a guy who's 6'1", 160, and people are applauding you as if you're the tough one? That ain't tough, as far as I'm concerned. But if I got it wrong, somebody let me know. I ain't never heard him stepping to anybody else other than he stepped to Stephen A. Smith. And I think he did it because he knew the cameras would catch it. Just my theory. But the reality is, if you're going to get tough, you got to get tough all the time. And that's the problem with being tough. And this is what I'll say to the men out there, especially these days, the era that we're in now. First of all, everybody has cameras. So the things that you do, and when I was, let's say, coming up high school into college, for the most part, when I was in college, we didn't have cameras. We had phones that you could take pictures on them, kind of, sort of, but not really. So a lot of things that we did aren't recorded. So it's just stories. So you could choose what to believe, what not to believe. Nowadays, everybody has a camera. Everybody has a phone. You go to a basketball game, there's 20,000 phones in there, 20,000 cameras, video cameras in there. So everything that happens is going to get recorded. I'm bringing all that up to say, men, if you think about being tough, understand that whatever you do that's tough is going to be on camera. And it can and will be used against you in court. Be careful what you do, because lawyers are not cheap. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we're in a completely different era when it comes to men. I'm from the era where if two men had an issue and they had an altercation that became physical, whatever happened in that altercation happened, both men went home and you dealt with whatever happened, whether you won or you lost. Nowadays, men will talk as if they won an altercation, let's say through their phone on the internet. Then when an altercation actually happens, the first ththing that same man who was talking tough does is call the authorities, call the cops, call their lawyer, and try to get you arrested or sued after they were talking as if they wanted a confrontation. The world has changed. Men used to talk tough and they had to be tough. Because the era that I come from, before we had phones, if you talk tough, you had to be tough. Because whoever you were talking to or about, eventually you were going to see them in person. And whatever you said, you had to do it. And you got held accountable to that. These days, a man can talk crazy through his phone. There's no accountability. And so many men get so used to talking crazy through their phone, they start to think that this is just how everyday life is until you run into somebody who is taking it seriously. Then they hold you accountable physically in real life, but then that man's not ready to deal with the way you were talking through your phone. So what they do is go call the cops. Now, you who are going by old school rules, now you're the one who gets arrested. You're the one who has an assault and battery charge. You're the one who has to pay a lawyer. So we're in a completely different world now. That's why you got to be smart rather than be tough. I'm not saying don't be tough. Defend yourself, but make sure it's defense, not offense. If you just ask me black and white, just to keep it real clear for all the men out there and the ladies out there who have men in their lives, here's what I would offer to all men is don't go on offense with men these days. It's generally a bad idea because a lot of men, again, have grown up on these phones, and there's a lot of men who are in their 40s and 50s, even though they come from the era where it wasn't like that. They are trying to relate to people in the era that it is like that. Therefore, they talk on the phone the way they would never talk in person, even though you're old enough to know better. That's why you can't even gauge and say, well, this guy's older, so he should know better. No, don't assume. Do not assume. I see a lot of men who are over the age of 35 who should know better. They should know the old school rules because they grew up with them, but they conduct themselves as if they're 16. They conduct themselves as if they're 16 years old with the rules of the internet. And they should know better, but they act like they don't because they're trying to relate to kids. I'm not trying to relate to any kids. So if you happen to be under the age of 30 listening to me right now, cool. I'm glad you get the message. I'm glad you're getting the value from what I share, but I am not here to relate to a 20-year-old. You got to relate to me. I don't need to relate to you. My material is for people who of my maturity level. We ain't got to be the same age, but my material is of a certain maturity level, and I'm not trying to relate to a teenager. And I don't play teenage games because I'm not a teenager. And that's the point is, all of you men out there, do not be tough. If someone is not physically threatening you, don't physically attack them because a lot of these dudes these days are another word to call a cat a kitten. I got a 5-part series on my show right now that is talking about this very thing. Dudes will talk like they want one thing, but then when it's time for that thing to actually happen, you realize that they didn't. And I'm going to show you right here because I got a show that comes out every day. It is called Work on Your Game. Where's my show? It's not showing. It's called Work on Your Game. You can find it right here on, this is Spotify. You can also find it on Apple. It's called Work on Your Game. It comes out every single day. And I did a 5-part series of yesterday. What was it say? Thursday. All right. So the series is Men Stop Being P-U-S-S-Y. All right. That's the series. Men Stop Being P-U-S-S-Y. All right, and again, you can find that on my podcast. The series is going on actually literally right now. So I'm not making this stuff up. Nothing I'm telling you am I making up on the spot. This is stuff I talk about all the time. So, as I said, I feel a little bit bad for Bronny James. Actually, more than a little bit bad for Bronny James because I don't think he asked for this. I think his dad put him in this position, and now he has to deal with it. And I will lastly say, I'm going to take a bathroom. I'm going to go to the bathroom for 2 minutes, and I'm going to take questions. LeBron James is in the way of his son. He's in the way. And I don't think he's trying to be in the way. I think he has positive intentions. I think LeBron has positive intentions for his son. I think he's trying to help his son out. I think he wants to put his son in the best possible position. And as a father, I understand him wanting to defend the name of his son and his name and the family name. Because when you're a man, you have a daughter. Your daughter eventually is going to get with another man and she's going to have his name. But your son is always going to have your name. So I understand a man wanting to defend the men that he has spawned, such as his children. I understand it. I think he has positive intentions, LeBron. I don't think he's trying to hurt his son. But he is unintentionally, I believe he's hurting his son. Because his son can't be a man with him in the way. And by getting him onto the LA Lakers, you made it worse. If LeBron had just left his son in college and said, son, don't enter the NBA draft until you're ready to earn your way in, there is no way in hell Bronny James would be on the Lakers right now. He'd be at USC playing basketball, like he should be. That's where he belongs. LeBron James, the only reason his son is in the NBA, and that's hurting his son. Even though the NBA is a higher level than college, even though he may develop into a great player through the G League and then eventually be good in the NBA, maybe that will happen. The problem is that was not Bronny's plan. That was LeBron's plan. That's where I hold LeBron accountable as a father. You change the trajectory of your son's path for your own purposes, not for his purposes. That is not okay. That's where I stand on that. All that said, All that said, I'm going to go to the bathroom. It's going to take me 90 seconds. I'll be right back, and I'm going to take questions and comments. I know some of you have questions and comments. Actually, a lot of you got them. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back. We'll be right back after these messages. 90 seconds. All right. We are back. Thank you, everybody, for waiting. So I'm glad I came up with this idea of taking a bathroom break while I'm doing these live streams. Because before I used to try to hold it, and I heard a man once say, once you get over the age of 50, anytime you see a bathroom, make sure you go in it. I'm not over age 50, but I understand why he said it. It makes sense. All that being said, folks, good morning over there, Cool F on YouTube. Let me see what we got. If we got any comments over on the other platforms. I don't think so. We're going to do Instagram. Then we'll get to TikTok. Facebook. Did Facebook work? Yes, Facebook did work. Blake Vance, what's going on? So Facebook did work. LinkedIn. Did LinkedIn work? I'm assuming LinkedIn worked. It's been... All right, so I think everything worked here today, hopefully. And I'm going to take a couple comments on Instagram. Then I'm going to come over to you all on TikTok. So let's see what we got on IG. I think it was just a couple things. Let's see. I see you over there, Noble Life. Blake, I see you. Solution said dad goal. His son will have a shorter career because of it. We'll see. Maybe he has a long career, but we'll see. Belfer said not only shorter, a senior citizen. I don't know what age is a senior citizen. Are you talking about Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith? Stephen A's in his 50s. We can't call that a senior citizen. He ain't that old. Skip might be in his 70s. I don't know how old Skip is. Belfort said there's a huge marketing strategy behind black people at odds. We're marketed as we should only be respected if we are willing to evoke violence, or at least say that we're willing to. LeBron wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight, and all of a sudden he wants to fight senior citizens. Yes, and I haven't heard many people echo that, but I've always looked at LeBron. Here's the thing: when you're a basketball player or any athlete, especially let's just use basketball because that's the sport that I play. LeBron, when you're a well-known and really good basketball player, for the most part, you don't even have to get in physical altercations because everybody likes you. Everybody in your high school likes you. Everybody at college likes you. And when you're a pro, you got everybody likes you for the most part. You might get an altercation on the court, like somebody might push you or bump you or something like that. But you ain't seen LeBron fight anybody in 20 years in the NBA. He didn't play in college, and I doubt he had to fight anybody in high school because he was the man. He was the man in high school. He's been famous since he was like 12. So how many fist fights has LeBron been in? I would say very few. And what happens is, again, people are fans of LeBron, so they talk about him as if he can. On the basketball court, LeBron's great. But how many fist fights do you think LeBron James has been in? I would say not too many. Just based on that alone, and just looking at the way he conducts himself. Because I've seen NBA players take physical shots at him, and I never saw him approach them back with the same level of aggression with which they fouled him. I didn't see him do that not once to anybody in the NBA. I'm not saying that means he's soft or weak, but I am also saying that if you're going to pull up on somebody, quote unquote, pull up on somebody as if it's one thing, you better be physically prepared to deal with them. If they decide they want to hit you, you better be ready to hit them back. And I think LeBron chose Stephen A. Smith in that particular situation because he knew Stephen A. Smith was not going to do anything like that. So to me, again, that's not tough. You're pulling up on a guy you're twice as big as. He's in a suit. What is he going to do? Basically ruin his whole career. If he was to punch LeBron in the face as soon as LeBron walked up, his whole career's done. Would he risk that because you wanted the posture? Now, again, has he pulled up on anybody who might hit him back? That's my question. If you're going to pull up on somebody, you got to pull up on somebody who might hit you back. That's it. Or just hit you, period. Forget hitting you back. Just start hitting you. All right, anyway. Quayos51 Freedom said, you should run for an office. I did. I ran to the bathroom, then I ran back into my office. That's the only office I'm running for. You talking about politics? No, probably not. Flynn said, I disagree with his politics, but appreciate his honesty. Who's he? Who you talking about? LeBron or Stephen A? Biz Buzz said, LeBron isn't even better than Larry Bird. I don't know about that one. I understand your frame, but I would say LeBron's better than Larry Bird. Larry Bird's very good, but LeBron's better than him. X said, are you an attorney? I get asked this question every day. No, I'm not an attorney. I just play one on TikTok. Not an attorney. I did a 2-part series on my podcast / masterclass explaining what it is that anyone can do to make people think you're an attorney even if you're not. So it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek series, but you should watch it and you'll understand. Coco said, all cultures in some way, nepotism. I think it hurt him, but he was also paid. Well, he didn't get paid that much. And LeBron makes more in one game than he can make all season. It's not a money thing. That's one of the things that I said. He didn't do it for the money. He did it for the ego. LeBron, not Bronny, he did it for the ego. Carl said, if I were a coach, I have been upset. Coach can't really call LeBron on that one. Coco said, would have ever been the case where he was ready for the NBA, he did what he could with what he could. Yeah, if he'd have stayed in college and developed. That's the purpose of college basketball. You develop and you become a better player. Tim Duncan, who's one of the best players of all time, was in college for 4 years. Michael Jordan was in college for 3 years. Allen Iverson was in college for 2 years. Shaquille O'Neal did 3 years in college. That's the purpose of college, to develop into an adult so that you're ready for the professional world. Bronny James is not ready for the pro world, which is why he could not cut it at the NBA level, which is why he's in the G League. User says, Stephen A talks too much. No, I don't think so. I think he talks the proper amount for his job. His job is talking. So how are you going to say he talks too much? That's a job. Valerie said, sounds like Steven can dish it out publicly, but he wants to respond privately. No, I disagree with that. Yes, it is his job to dish it out. That's his job to talk about stuff, but he talks about everybody. And LeBron is a hot topic because LeBron's a popular guy. You talk about LeBron, it's going to get attention. That's just the game that you're in for LeBron James. And respond privately is that he said LeBron has access to him. So if you want to talk to me, then come, let's have a man-to-man conversation. That, I agree with that. If I got an issue with a man and I know you, then I'm going to have a conversation with you as a man. I'm not going to just wait till I see you randomly and then come have a quick little outburst and then walk away. That's not okay. Dowie said, what about Kobe? Kobe is after Jordan? No, I don't think so. I would say Jordan and LeBron is better than Kobe. If we're just talking the three of them, it's Jordan, LeBron, Kobe. Now, just to be clear, because somebody asked me this maybe a year ago. I was running outside and I saw a couple of the security guards who walk around my area, and they said, I guess they were having a conversation. They said LeBron or Kobe. And the answer is, here's the proper answer to the question. I'm being tongue-in-cheek. The proper answer to the question is, I prefer Kobe's mentality, but LeBron is a better player. LeBron is a better player than Kobe Bryant. Now, if I had to pick a mindset, a player who I find myself more aligned with on a mental approach level, based on what I've heard both of them say, I prefer Kobe over LeBron. But as far as just players, who's the better player, the answer is LeBron James. Daly said, Kobe's mentality was much better than LeBron in my opinion. So there you go, right? That's what I just said. I like Kobe's mentality more than I like LeBron's mentality. However, that does not mean that Kobe's a better player than LeBron. I like my mentality better than LeBron, but that doesn't mean I can say I'm a better player than LeBron. I can't say that. I can't say it honestly. Max said, Bronny James can absolutely play in the NBA in his career. I never said that he could. I hope he does. Max said, Bronny is miles better than people picked around him in the draft. Irrelevant point. I already talked about that, Max. Hopefully you heard it. Taco said, dress up as a frozone. What's a frozone? I never heard of that. Carla, thank you for getting us pushed to 10K. We're almost at 20. Can we get to 20,000 likes, folks, please? Tillman said, I've been watching this guy for years and everything he's saying is fact. Yes, that's also fact. I know Tillman's been around, so shout out to you. Used to watch the pull-up jumper video. I remember making that video. Sick bass style said, W assistant. Yes, my assistant is very good. Oh, yeah, that mic is called the... Actually, no, I'm going to send you the affiliate link. Yes, the Third Day. That is this red book. You'll see behind me, thirddaybook.com. Send a DM. We'll send you a link to the book. C said, how do you get rich? I'm trying to make it out the streets. Well, what are you good at? There's a lot of different ways to make money. Dally said Eric Gordon torched him. Yes, he did. Yeah, Eric Gordon was very good. Jordan's son was not good. Someone said Eric played for the Rockets for a while. Yeah, he played for a bunch of teams. He's been bouncing around the league now because he's older. He's still in the league. I can't remember what team he's on, but he's coming off the bench for somebody right now. Y'all remember the Jordan Classic? Yeah. I don't think they have it anymore. I think he stopped doing it after he kind of faded away from the game. Joe Byron said, every time I hear about LeBron, it has to do with him crying about something. Okay. Now, I can't tell you that that's not your experience. Let's see. Carla said, at doctor's appointment with my husband, you all have a good day. All right, Carla. Thank you. She probably can't hear that, but cool. Bob the Blower said, man that played JV as a senior talking about NBA player. Nice try, Bob the Blower, but no. Empower with Yasmin said, also sports journalists come with the NBA. You cannot separate it. Yes, exactly. That's part of the game. That when you play a professional sport, you're going to get talked about. LeBron understands that. That's the whole point. That LeBron understands that he's going to get talked about while playing in the NBA, which is why I didn't like the fact that I don't like the fact that he even did this. So where am I at? I don't like the fact that he even did this because he knows better. He knows that that's how it goes. And he's had people talking bad about him forever. But if you want to pull up, you got to pull up on everybody. And that becomes tiring when you're doing that. So a bunch of you said the dad situation. Tillman said, I think Bronny decided to go to draft because of the heart issue. I remember the heart issue there. Melo, 3 years. Melo who? Carmelo Anthony? Or Carmelo Anthony only did 1 year. I don't know which Melo you're talking about. Zone said, who do I think was right, LeBron or Stephen A? I think they both have their reasons. It's not really about a right or wrong. I think Stephen A is perfectly justified in doing what he did because that's his job, is to talk about people. He always says that. My job is to talk about you, not to talk to you. And he's right. That's his job, talk about you. His whole job is talking about people. Now, I wouldn't want that job, just talking about other people every day for hours. That's what he does. I talk about things or subject matters here, but this is not my full-time job. I wouldn't want Stephen A's full-time job. And LeBron, him defending his ego and defending his kid or defending his fatherdom, fine, if that's what he's saying was the reason. But I have an issue with everything that led to that reason. So that's what I would say about LeBron. On the surface, it sounds good why he did it. But when you break it down, how we got here, that I'm not okay with. Dawson said, football is the only valid one because that's boys versus men. Valid in what? D. Jones said, you got the NIL now. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure Bronny has some NIL deals. But even if there wasn't NIL, Bronny James does not need for money. He didn't need the money. That's not why he did it. Brandon said, LeBron is doing Bronny a disservice adjusting his development for his dad. Yes, that's what I believe. He could have just left his kid in school. His kid could have gotten better at school. He brought him to the NBA for himself, not for his kid. Mara said, nepotism in business and government creates mediocrity. Sounds like it's encroaching into sports. No, they're trying. Well, actually, they're not even trying in sports because you can't pull it off. Again, I gave you all those examples. Shaq, Dwayne Wade, Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing, Michael Jordan. All these guys had a lot of power in the NBA or a lot of pull as players. They couldn't do it. So LeBron being able to do it is an exception, is not the rule. That's not going to happen in sports. Because in sports, you get exposed. If you can't play, you get exposed. And the only reason Bronny is able to do what he's doing and not get laughed out of the room is because his dad is still hanging around. If his dad wasn't playing, Bronny would not be on the Lakers right now. Carlos said, it's sad the whole world looks at him as mediocre. Well, he is mediocre. When it comes to playing in the NBA, he is mediocre. So that's not a made-up thing. The issue is that his dad forced him in a position to get exposed as mediocre when he should have been in school just being a college kid and getting better. That's the problem. Tillman said, I remember the Big Baller brand. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago, but it's pretty quiet now. Brandon said, LaMelo looks like he's going to have the longest career. Yeah, I mean, Lonzo's still playing. Melo is very talented. We'll see. Carlos said, part of being a good parent is allowing your children to live their own lives. Yes, I agree with that. Now, you can guide, but at some point, you got to step out the way. Greg Graham, good morning. You and Carla know each other? All right, so look at that. We're connecting people in TikTok chats. Oh, he said, sorry, I thought it was Greg Graham, the basketball player I went to school with him, so I guess not. I thought we did, but we didn't. Nobody Special says, good morning. Good morning to you, too. Carl said, that can cause a family rift. Yeah, absolutely can. When the children are adult enough to tell the parents, but sometimes you never get that chance with a parent. Mara, that's right. Carlos said, no classes on dealing with them not needing you anymore. Yes, exactly. Which is why the parents had to be held accountable for this. This is not a kids thing. It's a parents thing. Linda B said, you are correct. It's not easy to see, but kids have to stand on their own. We are their moral support. That's right. Brandon said, Luka's now the best player on the team. Maybe. I understand that. I was speaking kind of directionally, but push comes to shove, they're still going to need LeBron because LeBron can do things defensively that Luka doesn't do. So if I had to say who's the better player right now, if I needed to win a playoff series, I'm going to go with, there's an argument for Luka because Luka did just go to the conference finals last year and LeBron lost, in the first round? But on that team right now, I still say LeBron. Just because LeBron can do things, like I said, defensively that Luka seems to be uninterested in doing. So Move Maker says, sounds like a little hate. No, what did I say that sounded like hate? That he was a DEI NBA player? Well, he is. He got in because of something other than his performance. That's when I say DEI, I mean it. I'm saying it as a joke, but when I say DEI, I mean you got into that position based on something that had not to do with your performance, but with your immutable characteristics. And the immutable characteristic of Bronny James is that he's the son of LeBron James. Is that why he's on the Lakers? Is anybody questioning that? That's the reason why he's on the Lakers. So that is literally DEI based on the way that I'm using it. So yes, Bronny James is a DEI basketball player. NBA player, excuse me. He wasn't DEI in college because he got a scholarship based on his high school performance. But him going to the NBA based on what he did in college makes no sense. DJ said, I guess because he didn't say anything about his son. Fair enough. The issue, though, is that he was bashing LeBron from every single angle forever. And if LeBron is drawing a line and what Stephen A says LeBron said was about what Stephen A said about him as a father, not about Bronny. Because if he's going to defending Bronny, that kind of looks weak because Bronny's on the team. Why not let Bronny go approach Stephen A? Bronny ain't pull up on Stephen A. So he's saying it's because of what you said about me as a father. But everybody's talking about it. That's the problem. Everybody's talking about LeBron shoehorn his son into the NBA. Everybody's talking about you as a father. So how you going to pick Stephen A to go after? Brandon says, Skip defends Dak Prescott, but hates on. Yeah, Skip his shtick worked very well for 10, 20, 15 years. It's getting kind of old now, but it worked very well for a long time. So, hey. Duck said, what's Skip going to do? Well, not many people are going to do anything with LeBron James. Guy's 6'8", 260. And I believe he knows who to walk up on and who not to walk up on. That's what I'm saying. I haven't seen him walk up on too many players, even in the NBA. And he's been playing for 20 years. In the game, somebody does something or says something. How many players have you seen LeBron James walk up on like he wanted to do something? I haven't seen many. And again, if you're going to play that role, you got to play it all the time. You can't pick and choose when to be tough. Duck said, it's more about it being his son. Brian don't care when others talk about him. No, I think he does care. He may not go approach that person, but does he care? Yes, because he's online and looking at the conversations himself. You can tell by the things he says that he's paying attention to the conversation. To Amber and Beyond said, I think LeBron did that because he was a fellow black man. Well, the issue with that, Amber, is that there's a whole bunch of black people talking about this and saying similar things. He didn't approach anybody else. Belfer said, talking about he's going to fight Cameron for disrespecting him. Who said that? Stephen A. Smith? You're 50 talking about you're willing to fight. It's successful marketing. We get it. You never see any other. Who you talking about said they want to fight Cameron? Belfer said, consistently market the threat of violence or beef. Why? Because they want to perpetuate us in that way. Well, yeah, that's one thing. If we can say they, but the other thing is, Belfer, people do it. So we can't just blame it on others who are marketing it because they can't market something that's not happening. Belfer says, Stephen A., he's 57. Okay. LeBron is a world-class athlete, a foot tall. No part of that sounds like a fair fight. Yes, exactly. And what I'm saying is, I don't think either one of them was thinking it was going to be a fight. So that's why what I'm saying is the audience was reacting as if it was about to be when it's really not. Gavin said, don't let social media gurus sell you a damn course. Well, I don't know if you're referring to me, but I'm not selling any courses. And I'm not a social media guru either. And I buy courses from social media gurus. If they have something that can help me, I'll buy it. And I've bought a lot of courses from social media gurus that help me out. So your frame is wrong on all three levels. Brandon said, LeBron definitely ain't no Draymond. No, LeBron is not Draymond. Cash Money said, I'm a Lakers fan, and Kobe would never be behind LeBron James. Well, what do you being a Lakers fan have to do with anything? And in terms of best players, I'll just explain to you. I like Kobe's mentality better than LeBron's mentality, but if I had to pick the better player, I'm picking LeBron James. Paulina, good morning. Amber said, I think answered that one. Duck said, he don't talk about everybody. He haven't nearly talked to any other rookie as much as Bronny. Yes, because they're the story. That's the job when you're in media. Your job in media is not to talk about everybody equally. Your job in media is to talk about the thing that people want to hear about. Everybody wants to hear about LeBron and Bronny. That's why they get talked about all the time. That's the business. If you start drawing attention, everybody's going to be giving you the attention. And all the attention does not have to be positive. Crucifer Jr. said, I agree. All right, thank you. TD said, LeBron psychologically damaged his son. The boy will never be the same. I have a theory that is the direction it's going. We don't know yet because Bronny James doesn't have to speak for himself right now. LeBron's doing all the talking. Crucifer said, LeBron was cooking him when he played for the Cavs. Cooking who? Who are you talking about? Cooking Kobe? Well, if you say so. I mean, when LeBron was playing for the Cavs, Kobe was winning NBA championships. So I don't know if you could say he was cooking him. Kobe was winning the titles in those years when LeBron was supposed to meet him in the finals, but he kept losing in the playoffs. So I don't know about saying cooking. Marky said about Shaq, he couldn't be stopped. About Shaq, who are you talking about? T said Bronny will never play in the NBA again. His dad ruined his mindset. No, he'll get a chance. He'll get a chance because of his dad. He'll get another chance to play in the league. Now, if he'll have a career and make himself usable, I think Bronny can be a usable. He seems to be, if I was to project like best version of him, he'll be like a role player, maybe a sixth or seventh man on a good team. He's not a guy you can build a whole team around and win championships with him as your main guy. He's not his dad. But can he have a career, like a serviceable career in the NBA? Yes. Is he ever going to be a superstar like his dad is and was? No. He's just not that. User says, in no win situation for LeBron's son, he'll be compared to his father no matter where he goes. Well, he'll be compared no matter what. But the fact that his dad got him in the league right now makes it worse. If he had just played in college for 4 years and then he came to the NBA and his dad was already retired, he could build his own legacy because he's not playing in his dad's shadow. His dad is gone. But now his dad's still there. And now everything he does his dad is going to be standing right next to him. That's the issue. It's the same thing with LeBron James. When he came into the league, it was right after Jordan retired for the last time. And because they weren't on the court at the same time, their comparisons didn't really come until he started winning championships. They started talking about legacies. But as far as like on the court, you weren't really talking about Jordan and LeBron because they never shared the court. TT says, Steven gets paid to criticize, LeBron gets paid to entertain. Technically, yes, but criticism is entertainment as well. Somebody trashing another person on TV draws a lot of attention. You ever watch reality TV? That's all it is. Real Housewives. TT said, Brian should be playing AAU. Maybe we'll get to 30. I think I answered all the questions there, so I don't know if we're going to get to 30 here. So we are at, Carlos said 27K. I see 22K. I don't know. Maybe you're seeing something that I'm not. All that said, everybody, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you, Carla, for moderating and keeping the live going. Please give us some likes here as y'all are watching. But as I said, I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm usually talking about a current event or some social topic or social issue. That's what I did here today. It's usually not sports. Usually it's more serious topics. Sports is not a serious topic. This doesn't have any serious effect on any of your lives. But when we talk about things like happening in the government and politics, those things really can affect your life. Maybe not as directly as people get excited about it, but they do have a real effect. What LeBron James does on the basketball court has no real impact on anybody's life other than you watching the game. So let's not get too excited about things like sports and entertainment. They are what they are. They are diversions. They are not real life. Let's focus on our real life things, which is what I do. Listen to my show called Work on Your Game. Comes out every single day for free on all the podcasting apps, Apple, Spotify, etc. You can find it on YouTube as well. You want to learn more about working with me directly, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. We got a lot more stuff coming. You want to get one of my books, send me a DM. My assistant will direct you, or if there's a certain type of book you're looking for, send me a DM. My assistant will direct you towards where you can get it. Only thing about TikTok, if you send a DM, is that we can't put links in the DM. We can give you the URL, but you still got to type the link in, because you can't click. They don't give you clickable links in TikTok. They need to fix that. Hopefully they do. All that said, everybody, Carlos said that I missed the DEI show. Yes, you did. If you weren't here, I did DEI this week, so you might have missed it. It's on YouTube. That's the good news. Thank you for joining the team, Vendray Bugs. Joining the team over there on TikTok. All right, this is 2 hours of talking. I need to eat. I need to drink some water, and then I got work to do. Appreciate everybody. All y'all have a great weekend. I will see you all on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, Monday. Yes. Everybody have a great day. We out of here. Work on your game.